Chi Dao stared at me, a mocking glint in his eyes. He asked if I was serious, reminding me that I was only 16. He wanted to know if I, Yi Yin, actually intended to participate in the Tsangyun battle. I focused my mind. I knew the rules of the Tsangyun holy monument. To have your name carved upon it was the highest honor for a family. No one was allowed to touch it lightly. Yun Feishue was a saint, but even he had to be careful. That monument was erected 600 years ago by a saint named Tsangyun, the only one to ever emerge from this city. The city was named after him, and the city lord's mansion had been managed by the Tsang family for generations. Now, they were changing the rules on a whim. They wanted to wipe away my father's name. I let out a cold snort. The thought of Yun Feishue's name being on that same stone made my skin crawl. Having a man like him alongside my father was a stain on my father's legacy. If that was how it was going to be, I would personally wipe Yun Feishue's name off that monument myself. I told them I was definitely participating. My voice was steady, but it sent a shockwave through the crowd. Chi Dao and the other cultivators from the Chi family burst into hysterical laughter. To them, I was a joke. They called me a waste. I hadn't even begun to cultivate. I was just a commoner. They acknowledged I had a bit of backbone, but after Yin Feishue had shattered my meridians and bones, they thought I was lucky just to be breathing. Chi Dao sneered, asking if I actually expected to win the top spot. He told me it was fine if I joined. He wanted the whole city, the whole Wanyan Empire, to watch. He wanted everyone to witness his son, Chi Shan, take the place of honor on the monument. More importantly, the Tsangyun battle was the perfect place to kill me legally. Accidents happen in the heat of battle, and no one would call it a breach of the rules. If Chi Shan killed me, it would be a massive favor for the Yun family. Once my father's name was gone from that stone, the Yi family would lose its protection. That would be the day we died. Chi Shan looked at me with cold, mocking eyes. He told me he'd be waiting for me in a month. Then, Chi Dao led his people away. My uncle, Yi Long, looked at me with deep worry. He told me I was being too impulsive. That Tsangyun battle wasn't a game. Since I had never cultivated, he feared I would be killed or permanently crippled. The second elder, Yi Hu, sighed. He mentioned that according to tradition, the Yi family had to participate, but he didn't want it to be me. We had some young talent, but none of them could compete with someone like Chi Shan. Yi Long tried to stay positive. He said we had 1 month left and ordered the younger generation to train day and night. A few of the younger cousins, like Yi Ran and Yi Tong, stepped up. They promised to fight to the death to protect my father's name. I watched them, feeling a sense of pride. In our darkest hour, no one in the Yi family was a coward. But I knew the truth. Our hope was paper thin. If we lost, the Yi family would be destroyed, and my father, Yi Xiaodian, would become a laughingstock for eternity. Even in death, he wouldn't find peace. Yi Long whispered to the sky, vowing that if things went south, he would die just to smuggle me out of the empire. I didn't say anything, but my resolve was like iron. My heavenly physique was unsealed. 1 month was enough time to turn the tables. I went back to my room to begin my secluded cultivation. As I stepped inside, I froze. The broken sword my father had left behind was glowing with a faint, pulsing light. I moved toward it, and suddenly, the light exploded, swallowing the entire room. I found myself standing in a vast, desolate space, the world inside the sword. Ancient characters began to float in the air before me. Heaven and earth absolute. It was a cultivation technique. I knew the ranks: mortal, spirit, saint, noble, earth, and the legendary heaven grade. My family was strong, but we only possessed a middle-tier spirit technique. This, heaven and earth absolute, was heaven grade, a level above anything I had ever heard of. As I read the floating text, my heart raced. It required supreme willpower. The cultivation method was insane. To grow stronger, I had to devour weapons. I could train normally, but if I consumed powerful blades, my level would skyrocket. The higher the grade of the weapon, the faster I would promote. It was a monstrous way to cultivate. I realized then why my father might have sealed my physique. He was testing my will, preparing me for this. My family needed power, and we needed it now. I couldn't wait years to climb the ranks using standard methods. I looked at the script, my eyes burning with determination. I would do it. I memorized the technique, and the space began to fade. A final message flickered. Once I reached the chi condensation realm, I could return to choose a martial skill. I snapped back to reality in my room. I looked down at the sword. The blade, which had been broken for years, was perfectly whole again. Two small words were etched into the steel: heaven, earth. The spiritual energy on the sword felt thicker than before. I stared at the blade, now known to me as the Heaven-Earth Sword. It clearly had a legendary history. I wondered why my father had kept it hidden for so long, but I didn't have time for puzzles. I needed strength. My physique was unsealed. My meridians and bones were restored. My dantian was whole again. I had already reached the peak of the 9th level of body refining. My next step was to draw the essence of heaven and earth into my body and step into the chi condensation realm. To practice the heaven and earth absolute technique, I needed to devour weapons. Specifically, I needed a spirit-grade weapon to truly begin. Those were rare and expensive in Sonyan City. My family used to have them, but now, only my father's sword remained. I had to find another way. I headed toward the Spirit Pavilion. It was the heart of trade in the city, filled with cultivation manuals, skills, and weapons. As I walked through the doors, the air shifted. Dozens of eyes locked onto me. "Is that Yin?" someone whispered. "She actually survived?" After that hit from Yun Feishua. Surviving is one thing. She's still a waste. She'll never be able to gather chi. The gossip didn't stop there. People were talking about the upcoming Sonyan battle. The Yun family wanted to use the event to officially erase my father's name from the sacred monument. Then, a louder voice cut through the murmurs. "I heard Yi Yin is actually participating in the battle." The room went silent. Then, laughter broke out. To them, a cripple entering the Sonyan battle was a suicide mission. I didn't care. I didn't argue. In this world, only power makes the foolish shut their mouths. Until I had that power, talk was cheap. I scanned the first-floor counters. There were plenty of weapons, but nothing reached the spirit grade. I decided to head to the second floor. Meanwhile, back at the Yi household, my uncle Yi Long stood up abruptly. "What did you say?" Yenner went to the spirit pavilion. "Yes, great elder," the servant replied. "But Qi Shui and an elder from the Qi family are there too." Yi Long's face darkened. "Let's go. Now, if the Qi family tries anything, I'll make them pay." On the second floor of the pavilion, the items were much higher quality. My eyes caught on a rusty short sword sitting on a corner stall. Most people would have walked past it, but my new physique made me hypersensitive to spiritual energy. I felt a faint, rhythmic pulse coming from the rust. "How much for this?" I asked the stall owner. 30 spirit coins, he grunted. It was a steal. A real spirit weapon would cost at least 300. The owner clearly didn't know what he had. I pulled out the coins and reached for the blade. "I'll take that sword," a loud, arrogant voice barked. I looked up. It was Qi Shui, the second young master of the Qi family. His brother, Qi Shan, was the city's golden boy, currently favored to win that Songyun battle. Qi Shui himself was only 13, but had already reached the 9th level of body refining. "Yi Yan," Qi Shui sneered. "What a coincidence to see you here." Behind him, an older man named Qi Changjian stepped forward. He was a Qi family elder. "Kid, didn't you hear the young master? We want that sword. Hand it over." The surrounding shoppers backed away, sensing the tension. The Qi family had become the Yun family's lapdogs, and their influence was growing by the day. They were clearly looking for a fight. "I already offered 30 coins," I said calmly. "We'll give you 100, Qi Changjian said, looking at the stall owner. The owner didn't blink. "The deal is done. The item belongs to this young lady." Qi Changjian's face twisted with rage. "You're giving the Qi family no face? Do you know who we are? You want to cause trouble in the spirit pavilion?" The owner shouted back, his voice booming with hidden power. The spirit pavilion wasn't a place to mess with. It was rumored that a 9th-level spirit movement expert guarded the premises. Qi Changjian took a sharp breath and backed down, but his eyes stayed fixed on me, cold and predatory. "Fine," he hissed. "I'll see how you plan on leaving this building." They turned and walked downstairs to wait by the exit. The crowd looked at me with pity. Everyone knew the Qi family's reputation. The moment I stepped outside, I was dead meat. "Thank you," I told the stall owner, my expression unchanged. He looked at me, surprised by my composure. "Be careful out there." I tucked the short sword into my storage bag. I did one more lap to make sure there were no other hidden gems, then I headed for the exit. As soon as my boots hit the pavement outside, several shadows moved to block my path. Qi Changjian and Qi Shui were waiting, surrounded by their guards. Finally came out to play, kid? Qi Changjian growled. The pavilion can't protect you out here. Now, you're going to get on your knees, hand over that sword, and beg for mercy. He stepped forward, his inner energy surging, the air around him beginning to vibrate with lethal intent. Qi Changjian's energy shifted instantly. It whistled through the air, heavy and suffocating. I focused my mind, measuring the pressure. Third-level spirit movement realm. It was a formidable power, but as I looked at him, I didn't feel a flicker of fear. My name was etched on the blue cloud holy cup. The dignity of my family wasn't something to be trampled on by outsiders. I spoke my thoughts aloud, and I saw Qi Changjian's expression twitch. The rules of the holy cup were absolute. Even the elders of other families weren't supposed to lay a hand on the younger generation of the Yi family. I am an elder of the Qi family, so naturally, I cannot strike you, Qi Changjian said, his voice dripping with frustration. But then, 13-year-old Qi Shui stepped forward with a cold sneer. But if I challenge you, that should be fine, right? The crowd shifted, their eyes landing on the boy. He was only 13, but he had already reached the peak of the 9th-level body refining realm. To the onlookers, I was a cripple. They whispered that I stood no chance. What's the matter, Yin? Are you scared? Qi Shui mocked. I'm just 13. If you don't even dare to fight me, then get on your knees, hand over that sword, and crawl away. His voice was thick with provocation. The Qi family knew my situation, and they were doing this on purpose. If I fought, I'd be crushed. If I refused, the entire Blue Cloud City would know within a day that I was a coward who knelt before a child. Either way, the Yi family's honor would be dragged through the mud. My eyes narrowed. If he wanted a fight, I'd give him one. The Qi family sure knows how to act tough, a cold voice boomed. Yi Long and the rest of the Yi family warriors arrived, surrounding us. Seeing our great elder, Qi Changjian's face darkened. He knew he couldn't force the issue anymore. He turned to leave, but Qi Shui wasn't finished. Yin, are you going to hide behind your family forever? The boy shouted. You're pathetic. Your father was the same way back then. I'm starting to wonder if the stories about his greatness were all lies. I had been ready to walk away with Yi Long, but those words made me stop dead in my tracks. There are lines you do not cross. My father was my hero, a man I respected above all others. You want to fight me? I turned back, my voice cold. Today, I'll grant your wish. The crowd gasped. Even Qi Changjian looked surprised. Yin or don't, Yi Long hissed, grabbing my arm. This isn't the time for pride. Qi Shui is strong. You aren't his match yet. Everyone heard him. Qi Changjian laughed, seeing an opening. Great elder, surely the Yi family doesn't go back on its word? I didn't look at them. You talk too much, I said. Move. The onlookers shook their heads, calling me foolish and impulsive. Qi Shui didn't wait. He let out a roar, his inner energy exploding as he lunged forward. His fist tore through the air with a lethal whistle. He wasn't holding back. He wanted to break me. Yi Long watched with gritted teeth, his face pale with worry. I remained still. Only when Qi Shui's fist was inches from my face did I strike. My punch was simple. No flashy movements, no wasted energy. Just raw, concentrated power. Even though I was also at the 9th level of body refining, my foundation was reinforced by the heavenly earth technique. A dull thud echoed through the street. Qi Shui didn't just stop. He flew backward like a broken doll. He hit the pavement hard, coughing up a spray of crimson blood. Before anyone could react, I was standing over him. Yin, what are you doing? Qi Shui stammered, his face turning ghostly white. You insulted my father, I said flatly. That carries a death sentence. I raised my foot, aiming straight for his head. Yin, you dare! Qi Changjian screamed, his killing intent exploding. In this world, I replied, there is nothing I don't dare to do. I brought my foot down. There was a sickening crack as his skull shattered. Blood splattered across the stones. A heavy silence fell over the crowd, followed by sharp gasps of horror. They hadn't expected me to be this ruthless. Qi Changjian went berserk, his third-level spirit movement energy flaring up to kill me. But Yilong was faster. He stepped in front of me, his sixth-level power crushing Qi Changjian's momentum instantly. This was a challenge Qi Shui started, Yilong said firmly. What? Is the Qi family too weak to accept a loss? Qi Changjian was trembling with rage, but he knew he couldn't win here. He had to swallow his fury. Yilong, Yin, enjoy your victory while it lasts, he hissed. Within a month, the Yi family will be wiped from existence. He grabbed Qi Shui's limp body and retreated. I turned to Yilong, let's go. As we walked away, the crowd's whispers followed us. They were shocked I wasn't a useless waste anymore, but they still didn't believe in my future. They knew Yin Feishue had shattered my dantian. To them, I had reached my ceiling. I could never progress further without a way to gather qi. I ignored them. I was listening to the rumors about the spirit platform Sword Grave. It was an ancient site built 500 years ago by a master smith. It was said to be opening in 7 days, and it contained a powerful spiritual aura. Only the younger generation could enter its depths. Yilong looked at me, a mix of pride and sadness in his eyes. Yinner, I'm glad you've recovered this much. Your father would be proud. But please, don't be so reckless again. I didn't explain the truth to him. I just nodded. In his heart, he believed like everyone else, that my dantian was gone forever. He just wanted to protect me for as long as he could. Once we reached the safety of the Yi Manor, I locked myself in my room. I pulled out the short sword I had bought at the pavilion. It wasn't a true spiritual tool, but the trace of spirit energy inside was far more potent than any ordinary weapon. Let's start with you, I whispered, my eyes fixed on the blade. I wanted to see if the Heavenly Earth technique was truly as legendary as the scrolls claimed. I began to circulate my energy, ready to consume the sword's power. I took a deep breath and activated the Heavenly Earth technique. The spiritual energy from the short sword turned into a sharp, piercing stream. It rushed into my body, cold and violent. The power hammered against my internal organs and bones. It was so intense I nearly blacked out. My skin felt like it was about to tear apart. Condense. I spat out a mouthful of blood and forced the energy to move. I pushed the technique to its limit, dragging that wild power toward my dantian. In an instant, I felt it. My dantian was reforming, filling with a surge of raw strength. I checked my internal state and froze. I hadn't just reached the first level of the Qi condensation realm. I had jumped straight to the third. Most people spent 6 months or a year to reach this stage. I had done it in a heartbeat. I looked at the remains of the short sword. If this had been a true spiritual tool, I might have reached the 5th level. The Heavenly Earth technique was even more incredible than I imagined. I turned my attention to my dantian to see my attribute. Usually, a cultivator develops a specific shape, a lightning bolt for thunder, or a blade for sword energy. But as I looked, my dantian began to flicker with every element imaginable. Gold, wood, water, fire and earth, wind, thunder, and even the shapes of dragons and tigers. Then, they all merged into a single, ancient word, myriad. I realized then that I possessed the myriad Tao earth body. I wasn't limited to one element. I could absorb any energy in existence and unleash any power I chose. Yun Feishue thought her St. Cloud body made her a genius. To me, she was nothing. But there was something else. My mind felt sharper, my senses more acute. I searched my consciousness and found a soul core. It sat in my head like a second dantian, but it held soul power instead of spiritual energy. This meant I was a soul master. In this world, alchemists and array masters were revered because soul power was so rare. Even the great sects treated powerful soul masters with absolute respect. I decided to test it. I focused, condensing a tiny sliver of soul power. I flicked it toward a stone table in my room. There was a sharp crack. The stone was pierced right through. The power was terrifying. Even without using a martial technique, this soul power alone could let me fight a 5th-level cultivator. If I combined it with my spiritual energy, I could take on the 6th level. I knew I had to keep this a secret. The Yi family was still too weak to face our enemies openly. I needed more strength for the Zhanyun battle in a month. My enemy, Qi Shan, was already at the Jiedan realm. To close that gap, I had to go to the spirit platform Sword Grave. It was a dangerous place, restricted to those under 18, but I didn't care. That spiritual aura was mine for the taking. I sat down and focused on the heavenly earth sword. My mind slipped back into that misty, infinite world. I needed martial techniques, and I needed them now. While I was training, a different kind of storm was brewing at the Qi Manor. Qi Dao, the head of the family, stood over the cold body of his son, Qi Shui. His eyes were bloodshot, burning with a murderous rage. He didn't care that his son had started the fight. He only cared about revenge. He didn't just want me dead. He wanted every young member of the Yi family to be buried alongside his son. He knew the sword grave was opening soon. He knew we would be there. He began to whisper his plan to the elders, a dark smile crossing his face. He wasn't just looking to kill us. He wanted to erase the Yi name from the city forever. Qi Dao wasn't a man who took loss lightly. He stood in his manor, eyes burning with a cold, calculated rage. He knew the rules of the spirit platform, sword grave. Only those under 18 could enter the formation. His strongest son, Qi Shan, was 19. Even though Qi Shan had reached the Jiedan realm and could crush anyone in the city, the barrier would reject him. The other Qi family youngsters weren't strong enough to guarantee a slaughter. Qi Dao didn't hesitate. He decided to call in a favor. He sent a letter to the head of the Fong family with a simple, brutal offer. If the Fong family killed every young member of the Yi family inside the grave, the Qi family would give them a high-level spiritual treasure. The elders gasped at the price, but Qi Dao didn't care. The Fong family's son, Fong Chan, was a monster. He was under 18 and already at the 8th level of the spirit Qi realm. With him leading the charge, the Yi family kids wouldn't stand a chance. Qi Dao smiled. He was going to pay a high price to make sure my family's blood stained the mountain. While they plotted my death, I was deep inside the space of the heavenly earth sword. I stood before rows of ancient, towering bookshelves. Most were blocked by shimmering barriers I couldn't cross yet, but the first row was open. My heart raced as I scanned the titles. There were thousands of spirit-grade techniques here. Then, I saw them, saint-grade techniques. In our empire, only the royal family or the city lord might possess something that powerful. To the rest of the world, they were myths. To me, they were just sitting on a shelf. I spent 7 days in total isolation, pushing my body to the limit. I chose 3 techniques to master. First was a spirit-grade high-rank move called Thunder Punch. It allowed me to turn my spiritual energy into raw lightning at the tip of my fist. Second was the Flying Sword Art, a saint-grade technique that let me condense my energy into a physical blade. Finally, I picked a soul technique called Thousand Silk Needle. It turned my soul power into invisible, lethal threads. Most geniuses would need a year to learn these. I mastered all 3 in a week. My cultivation jumped to the 4th level of the Spirit Qi realm. I knew that with my soul power and these new techniques, I could hold my own against a 7th level cultivator. I felt a surge of confidence. I was no longer the weakling they remembered. I walked out of my room and found the elders gathered in the courtyard. Great Elder Yi Long and Second Elder Yi, who looked stressed. The sword grave was our last hope to train the younger generation before the big battle in a month. When I told them I was coming along, they both shouted at once. They told me it was too dangerous. They were afraid the Qi family would kill me the moment I stepped out of the manor. The third elder stepped in to save me. He pointed out that if all the family experts left for the mountain, I'd be a sitting duck if the Qi family attacked the house. It was actually safer for me to be with the main group. Yi Long eventually nodded, though he looked worried. He told me I could come, as long as I stayed behind and didn't enter the most dangerous parts of the grave. I didn't argue. I just wanted to get there. We mounted our horses and rode toward the outskirts of the city. The streets were lined with people whispering as we passed. They saw the entire Yi family elite moving out and new blood was going to spill. They talked about how the Fong family was the favorite to win the spiritual treasures this year. They looked at us like we were already ghosts. After half an hour, we reached the base of Mount Songling. The spirit platform sword grave was hidden deep within these peaks. As we arrived, I saw a large group already waiting. The Qi family was there, their eyes cold and mocking. They didn't expect us to actually show up. I gripped the reins of my horse, my eyes locking onto theirs. The hunt was about to begin. The head of the Qi family, Qi Dao, stared at us with eyes like a viper. His gaze lingered on me longer than anyone else, cold and calculating. I didn't think the Yi family would actually have the guts to show up, he sneered. My great elder, Yi Long, didn't flinch. He stood tall, his voice booming with authority. There is nothing my family fears. You have a few decent sprouts under 18, Chi Dao, but don't think for a second that we are intimidated by you. Chi Dao let out a chilling laugh. Deep in his eyes, I saw a murderous intent so thick it was suffocating. I knew why. His son, Chi Shui, was still on Barrett. He was keeping the body above ground until this day, waiting to slaughter every single youth in the Yi family so his son could finally rest in peace. Next to him stood Chi Shan. He watched me like I was already a dead man. I knew he had given a specific order to his kin. Whoever walked out of that cave had to be carrying my severed head. Dust kicked up as the Fong family arrived, led by Fong Lin. Other smaller clans like the Wu and Deng families followed, eager to scavenge whatever they could from the sword grave. But the real shock came when the Yun family appeared. The Yun family was different. They were the kin of Yun Feishue and Yun Feiyue, the sisters who had betrayed my father. Since Feishue joined the Yunchao sect, they had become the new nobility of the empire, second only to the royal family. They hadn't been in Songyun City for years, yet here they were. They weren't here to compete. An old woman, known as Granny Hua, led their small group. Chi Dao practically sprinted to greet her, bowing low. Granny Hua, I didn't expect you to come personally. The old woman smiled thinly. How could I miss this? You wrote to the Yun family saying you would wipe away a certain nuisance today. We wanted to see it with our own eyes. She was talking about me. I felt a surge of cold fury. If it weren't for the Yun family's betrayal, my father would still be alive and our family wouldn't be a laughingstock. So you're Yin? Granny Hua looked at me. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You don't know me, but I raised both Miss Feishue and Miss Feiyue. You should feel honored I'm even looking at you. The surrounding clan leaders immediately swarmed her, desperate to suck up to a servant of the powerful Yun family. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white. One day, I promised myself I would make the Yun family vanish from this world. The time has come, a voice announced. It was the city lord's manager. The mountains are open. Enter. We moved into the deep forest. The air was thick with mist and the roars of spirit beasts. It took us over an hour to reach the site, fighting off 3 separate waves of wild beasts along the way. My elders handled the fighting, collecting hides and resources as we pushed forward. Finally, we reached a massive ancient cave. 3 words were carved into the stone above the entrance: Spirit Platform, Sword Grave. A terrifyingly sharp sword intent radiated from the darkness within. We stay here, the manager declared. Only those under 18 can enter. This is a trial for the youth. The youths from the Fong, Wu, and Qi families stepped forward. My cousins, Yi Ran and Yi Tong, moved toward the entrance too. I stayed back for a moment, watching. Chi Dao noticed I hadn't moved. He signaled to a boy from a minor family. The boy pulled out a jade pendant and shouted, Yin, your father dropped this during the battle at Songyun City. I found it. If you don't want it, I'll just sell it to the highest bidder. My heart stopped. That pendant belonged to my father. Without thinking, I lunged forward, charging straight into the cave. Yin, wait, Yi Long shouted, but I was already through the threshold. Don't worry, great elder. We'll protect him. Yi Ran and the others yelled as they followed me into the gloom. Behind us, I heard Chi Dao's hysterical laughter. Yi Long, let's make a bet. I bet not a single member of your family walks out of that cave alive. What did you say? Yi Long's voice trembled with rage. Oh, just a thought, Chi Dao sneered. Who knows what happens in the dark? Maybe they'll run into some very hungry beasts. Fong Lin, the head of the Fong family, chimed in with a smirk. He's right. Anything can happen in there. The realization hit my elders like a physical blow. The Qi and Fong families had officially joined forces. It was a death trap. Yi Long roared, sprinting toward the cave entrance. But as he reached the mouth, the carved words flashed with a blinding light. A wave of sword energy slammed into his chest, throwing him back. The seal was absolute. No one over 18 could enter. Yi Long stood up, his face twisted in a mask of fury. He glared at Chi Dao and Fong Lin, his energy exploding outward. If my children die in there, I will spend my last breath making sure every single one of you burns with them. Yehu and the other elders stepped up beside him, drawing their weapons. The mountain air turned frigid as the two sides prepared for a bloodbath outside, while inside, the real hunt had just begun. Do the Yi family think they can just defy heaven? Or do they simply have no respect for the city lord's office? The voice of the old woman, Granny Hua, boomed across the mountainside. The air vibrated with her power. 6th level moving spirit realm. No one expected this old hag to be such a powerhouse. Beside her, the manager from the city lord's mansion released his own aura. He was at the same level. 2 cultivators, both as strong as our great elder Yi Long, were now standing guard. They were here to suppress the Yi family by force. My elders were trapped. If they struck first, the Yun family would use it as an excuse to wipe us out entirely. It wouldn't even violate the rules of the Zhongyun sacred monument, because we initiated the fight. But if they did nothing, the Yi family would only last another 20 days before being picked apart. Inside that cave, the younger generation, my cousins and I, were walking into a slaughterhouse. Without our young talents, the Yi family would have nothing left for the upcoming battle. The Yun, Qi, and Fong families, along with the city lord's office, had formed a perfect circle of death. And since no one could see what happened inside the cave, there would be no evidence. No witnesses. Just a tragic accident. I saw Yi Long and Yi Hu gritting their teeth, their eyes fixed on the cave entrance. They were praying for a miracle. Outside, Qi Dao let out a cold laugh. He stared at the cave mouth, waiting. He knew it wouldn't be long before the Fong family youths dragged our corpses out into the light. Inside the gloom, we knew nothing of the standoff outside. I turned my gaze toward the young man who had led me here. When our eyes met, I saw a flicker of fear in him. He didn't understand why he, a condensing Qi cultivator, was afraid of a useless person like me. I looked at the jade pendant in my hand. It was definitely my father's. I tucked it into my robes and looked ahead. Yi Tong, Yi Ran, and the rest of my family were already pushing deeper into the cave, heading toward the area where the sword energy was thickest. The cave was massive. Everyone hurried, desperate to claim the spiritual treasures before someone else did. In the back of the group, Fong Chan leaned toward a Qi family youth named Qi Hua. "Do we strike now?" he whispered. "No rush," Qi Hua replied, his voice barely a breath. "If we move now, they might turn and run back out. We wait until we reach the heart of the grave. Once the spiritual artifacts are in our hands, there will be no escapes." Fong Chan nodded. According to the ancient records, the weapons forged by the spirit platform realm master would choose their own masters based on talent. They were confident the weapons would choose them, not the lesser Yi family. Once they were armed with superior gear, we would be easy prey. I frowned, walking ahead of them. That boy's sudden appearance with my father's pendant had already put me on high alert. I had kept my soul power released the entire time, sensing everything. Their quiet conversation hadn't missed my ears. The Fong and Qi families had officially joined forces to execute us. A cold light flashed in my eyes. They were behind us, blocking the exit. Running wasn't an option anymore. I had to fight, but the time wasn't right yet. I needed to reach the depths and secure a spiritual weapon of my own to tip the scales. I knew why Granny Hua was out there. She was waiting to see my corpse, likely on behalf of Yun Feishua and Yun Feiyue. I made a silent promise. I was going to disappoint them. We walked for nearly half an hour before we finally reached the end of the cave. Before us, hundreds of weapons were thrust into the ground like a metallic forest. But one sword stood out, radiating a brilliant, blinding light. A spiritual weapon. The group's eyes lit up. One impatient boy lunged forward, reaching for the hilt. As his fingers brushed the metal, the sword let out a low hum. A massive shockwave of energy slammed into his chest, sending him flying backward. He hit the ground hard, coughing up blood, his face turning ghostly pale. The spiritual sword wasn't something just anyone could touch. The others shivered in fear. They turned their attention to the other swords. Many were rusted, but some still gleamed with sharp potential. The head said the main artifact chooses its master. A youth from the Wu family muttered. But the other swords might contain secret techniques or cultivation methods. It's all down to luck now. They started moving toward the lesser blades. Pick one sword and get out, Chi Hua suddenly barked. If you've made your choice, vanish. The room went silent. Did you not hear me? Chi Hua sneered. His spiritual chi exploded outward, swirling with the sharp intent of a saber physique. He was at the 7th level of the condensing chi realm. The surrounding youths gasped. You want to resist? Fang Chan stepped forward next, his own power erupting. 8th level condensing chi. Thunder seemed to flicker in his aura. The Wu family disciples and the others saw the murderous intent in their eyes. They weren't stupid. They scrambled to grab whatever sword was closest and bolted for the exit. Now, only the Fang, Qi, and Yi families remained. They're coming for us, Yi Ran whispered, his knuckles turning white as he gripped his weapon. My cousins immediately formed a circle around me. I was the son of Yi Xiaodian. Without my father, the Yi family would have been nothing. These boys respected his memory, and they were ready to die to protect me. When the fight starts, we hold them off, Yi Ran whispered to Yi Tong. Even if we die, we make sure Yi Yin gets out. Yi Tong nodded solemnly. Now it's just us, Chi Hua said, his voice cold as ice. It's time to settle the bill. Yi Yin, if you crawl over here and beg on your knees, maybe we'll give you a quick death. In your dreams, Yi Ran shouted. The Yi family always did have big mouths, Chi Hua sneered. Kill them. The Fang family disciples charged, their spiritual chi exploding as they rushed us with killing intent. Fang Chan led the pack, his 8th level strength crackling with the sound of distant thunder. Fang Chan stood before us, a terrifying presence. He possessed the thunder spirit body, a rare and devastating talent. With his level of power, he could sweep through almost anyone here. I looked at Yi Ran and Yi Tong. Their faces were pale, their bodies trembling under the sheer pressure of his aura. They knew they couldn't withstand him, especially with the rest of the Fang family still waiting in the wings. Yet, they didn't back down. They gritted their teeth and pushed their spiritual chi to the absolute limit. There was no fear in their eyes, only a grim resolve to die fighting. If they get those spirit swords, we're finished, Yi Tong muttered, his voice tight. Fang Chan let out a cold, mocking laugh. The Yi family is pathetic. I don't even need a spirit sword to slaughter you lot. He moved, but Chi Hua cut in, his eyes fixed on me. Let the Fang family handle the rest of these pests. Leave Yi Yin to us. I want to be the one to take his head. Chi Hua and the other Chi family disciples began to slowly circle me, closing in like wolves. Yi Ran and Yi Tong tried to rush to my side, but Fang Chan and his men blocked their path, trapping them. They were furious, shouting my name, but they were pinned down. To them, I was still just a trash cultivator at the 9th level of body tempering. They thought the Chi family would kill me in a heartbeat. Kneel, Chi Hua commanded. His voice was like ice, and the aura of a 7th level condensing Chi cultivator exploded from his body. He looked at me as if I were already a corpse. I didn't move. Didn't you hear him? Kneel, another Chi disciple barked. Seeing no reaction from me, he lost his temper and lunged forward. I'll show you what real power looks like. A piece of trash like you will never understand the strength of the condensing chi realm. He threw a heavy punch straight at my face. My cousins watched in horror, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't the weakling they remembered. My dantian might have been destroyed once, but it was now filled with pure, golden spiritual chi that far surpassed any ordinary cultivator. I met his punch with my own. A dull thud echoed through the cave. The Chi disciple's eyes widened as his entire arm shattered. He was sent flying backward, blood spraying from his mouth before he hit the ground. It was a clean, decisive strike. The cave went silent. Everyone, Chi and Fang alike, stared at me in total shock. How is this possible? Chi Hua stammered. You have spiritual Chi? Your dantian was ruined. The shock quickly turned into murderous intent. Only a few days ago, I had nothing. Now, I was a threat. Kill him. All of you go, Chi Hua screamed. The remaining Chi disciples charged at me at once. My family watched with a mix of hope and terror. I looked at the approaching mob, these dogs of the Yun family, and felt nothing but cold rage. Come, I whispered. I'll crush you all. I released my full aura. 4th level condensing chi. I moved like a bolt of lightning, my hand striking out like a blade. In an instant, For disciples hit the floor. They didn't get back up. I didn't waste movements. Every strike was a kill. Chihua was shaking with rage. Yiyan, you dare kill my kin? I'll grind your head into the dirt. You, the Qi family, and the Fong family, you're all dying today, I interrupted. I was done listening to his threats. You're arrogant for a 4th-level brat. One of the remaining Qi disciples sneered. Your growth is fast, but it ends here. He didn't even finish his sentence before I was in front of him. My fist crackled with thunder. One punch landed, and the lightning surged through him, charring his internal organs instantly. He dropped dead before he even realized he'd been hit. Chihua was losing his mind. He couldn't understand how a 4th level could one-shot a 5th-level cultivator. But he didn't wait to figure it out. He lunged at me, his fingers hooking into claws. Dragon Tiger Claw, he roared. It was a mid-grade spirit technique. His hands could shred solid rock. I didn't dodge. I gathered my chi and met his claws with my thunder fist. The collision sent a shock wave through the air. I was shoved back several steps, a trickle of blood escaping my lips. Chihua stayed rooted, but his hand was trembling in pain. He looked at me with genuine fear. Not even Qishan or the genius Yunfeishua had this kind of power at my level. If I lived, the Yi family would rise again. He couldn't let that happen. Die, he screamed, rushing me again. He was strong. A 7th-level cultivator was hard to handle with my current cultivation. But during our exchange, I had been moving. I was now only inches away from the spirit swords. As the Qi disciples closed in, I triggered my trump card. Flying Sword Art. This was a saint-grade technique. Sharp blades of golden Qi manifested around me and shrieked through the air. The Qi disciples tried to block with their own energy, but it was useless. The swords tore through them like paper. Only Chihua managed to deflect the blow, but the force stopped him in his tracks. He looked around, his face turning a ghostly white. Every single one of his clansmen was dead. He was the only one left. I'll kill you. I'll tear you apart, he howled. I ignored him. I reached for the spirit sword, my fingers just 3 inches away. But then, a shadow fell over me. Fong Chan had arrived. He had pushed past Yi Ran and the others, leaving them wounded and exhausted. He was an 8th-level powerhouse, and his 2 lieutenants were both at the 7th level. This sword belongs to me, Fong Chan sneered, his hand reaching out to claim the prize. Fong Chan's hand clamped around the hilt of the spirit sword. He looked triumphant for a split second, but then the blade began to vibrate violently. A low hum filled the air, and the sword resisted him, trying to jerk free from his grip. He was stunned. He was the most talented person here. How could he not control a mere spirit tool? The sword was actually trying to repel him. Your talent isn't enough to earn its respect, I spat. Even though I hadn't touched the blade yet, I could feel a connection forming. This was the difference in our innate potential. I focused my mind and reached out with my spirit. Come to me, I commanded. The sword shrieked. It tore itself out of Fong Chan's hand and soared through the air, landing perfectly in my palm. How is this possible? Fong Chan roared, his face twisting with rage. You're only at the 4th level of spirit chi. I'm at the 8th level. I have a green dantian and a saber spirit body. What are you? I looked at him with pure disdain. A green dantian? In the face of my potential, even a purple dantian was nothing. As for his spirit body, it was a joke compared to what I was building. A green dantian is okay, I said coldly. But don't embarrass yourself by bragging about that spirit body. I gripped the spirit sword, feeling its power course through me. If I hadn't come today, every single youth in the Yi family would have been slaughtered by these 2 families. The Qi and Fong families were heartless. I wouldn't show them any mercy in return. I stepped forward and swung. Saber burst. Fong Chan yelled. He used his spirit body to manifest a massive blade of energy to meet my strike. The sound of metal clashing against metal echoed through the cave. Fong Chan's body jolted. His energy blade shattered instantly. Even the lowest grade spirit sword possessed power beyond his imagination. Chihua watched in horror, but I didn't give him time to speak. I lunged at him next. He pulled out a long spear to block me, but the spirit sword sheared through the wood and metal like it was rotting silk. He grit his teeth, trying to activate his own hidden power, but I didn't give him the chance. I unleashed a surge of soul power directly at his mind. His eyes went wide. He froze, his soul shaking from the impact. By the time he regained his senses, the spirit sword was already buried in his chest. He looked down at the blade, his eyes filled with a final, terrifying realization. He knew I was a soul master, but he would never live to tell anyone. I pulled the sword out and didn't stop. I moved through the rest of the Fong family disciples like a god of war. In a matter of seconds, the ground was littered with bodies. Only Fong Chan and two others, Fong Hua and Fong Rong, were left standing. Their faces were ghostly white. They were strong on paper, but they were just kids who had never seen a real bloodbath. I was different. I had watched my father, Yi Xiaodian, kill enemies since I was a child. He taught me one thing. Being kind to your enemy is being cruel to yourself. Kill him. The three of them screamed, charging at me together. I was ready. As their blades descended, I triggered my soul power technique, the 1,000 silk needles. Invisible threads of energy shot out, piercing their eyes. They screamed in agony, dropping their guard as blood poured down their faces. I stepped in and swung the spirit sword in one clean arc. 3 wet thuds followed. Their throats were open, and their lives faded before they hit the ground. I exhaled a long breath. These guys had high cultivation levels, but zero combat experience. They got distracted in a life-or-death fight. That was a fatal mistake. You killed them all, Yi Ran stammered. He and the other Yi family kids were staring at me in total shock. They would never forget what they saw today. Let's go, I said. We're leaving. We gathered up all the weapons from the fallen disciples, treasures that would help rebuild the Yi family's strength, and headed for the exit. Outside the sword grave, the atmosphere was tense. Qi Dao, Qi Shan, and Fong Ling were all wearing smug grins. They were probably counting the minutes until our corpses were dragged out. It's been a while, Qi Dao remarked loudly, glancing at my elders, Yi Long and Yi Hu. The sword grave is a dangerous place. I fear the Yi family youths might not make it out. Yi Long's face was pale with worry. He looked at the disciples from other families who had already emerged, all of them looking shaken. It didn't look good for us. Then, the sound of footsteps echoed from the cave mouth. Everyone turned to look. The smiles on the faces of the Qi and Fong elders froze instantly. Yi Ran? Yi Tong? Yi Long cried out in relief, rushing forward to shield them. You're alive. The surrounding crowd gasped. The Qi and Fong elders looked like they had swallowed flies. Where are my people? Qi Dao bellowed. Where is the Fong family? It was horrible in there, Yi Ran said, following my lead. We ran into high-level beasts. They were all wiped out. Not a single one survived. You lie, Fong Ling screamed, her eyes turning red with fury. What? Yi Long barked, stepping in front of us. You want to start something with the Yi family right here? The two elders grit their teeth, trembling with rage, but they couldn't attack us in front of all these witnesses. They had to swallow their anger for now. Qi Dao, Yi Long laughed. You mentioned a bet earlier? Since my family won, let's just forget about it. We're leaving. As we turned to walk away, Qi Shan's cold voice rang out. Yi Ran, Yi Tong, don't get too happy. This was just a graveyard. At the upcoming Tsungyun battle, I will take the top spot. And in front of the entire city, I will erase Yi Xiaoyan's name from the records forever. I stopped in my tracks. I turned around and looked Qi Shan right in the eye. You? I said calmly. You aren't capable of that. I didn't wait for his reaction. We walked away, leaving him fuming. The onlookers whispered among themselves, shaking their heads. Qi Shan was a Jie Dan realm expert. To them, the Yi family was still doomed. The Tsungyun battle would be the end of us. But as we got further away, Yi Long looked at me, his eyes wide with realization. Yenner, your breath, you've reached the 4th level of spirit Qi? He and Yi Hu exchanged looks of pure shock and joy. I just nodded. Let's get home first, I said. We have a lot of work to do. We returned to the Yi family estate once I was sure no one was following us. Inside the main hall, the atmosphere was electric. Great Elder Yi Long and the others were laughing, their faces flushed with relief. They kept saying my father, Yi Xiaodian, must be watching over us from the heavens. They never expected I would possess enough power to slaughter the elites of the Qi and Fong families and even bring back a spiritual sword. Those arrogant youths thought their cultivation levels were everything. forgetting that while they were playing in safety, I was standing on the city walls with my father, watching him face down armies. Yinner, Yilong said, his voice dropping to a serious tone. From this moment until the Tsanyun battle, you must focus entirely on your cultivation. Don't worry about anything else. I nodded and headed back to my private courtyard. Behind me, I could feel the gaze of Yi Long, Yi Hu, and the third elder, Yi Bao. They looked at me with pride, but as soon as I was out of earshot, Yi Bao's brow furrowed. Brother, there are only 20 days left until the battle, Yi Bao whispered. Yi Long sighed. We all knew how cultivation worked. The early stages of the spirit chi realm are easy, but it gets harder with every level. Even a genius couldn't jump from the 4th level to the Jiedan realm in 3 weeks. On the day of the battle, Yi Long said firmly, we must make sure Yenner leaves the empire. If he lives, he can avenge us later. Yi Hu and Yi Bao nodded solemnly. They couldn't run. The target on the Yi family was too big. If they fled, the Yun family would hunt them down immediately. They had to stay behind to act as a shield, even if it meant their deaths. Knowing my talent had returned, they were no longer afraid to die. I didn't know about their plan to sacrifice themselves. Back in my room, I pulled out the spiritual sword I had taken. The spiritual energy radiating from it was dense and pure. I knew that the higher my level, the more energy I needed to break through. A sword like this should be enough to push me to the 7th level of the spirit chi realm. I sat down and activated the heavenly earth technique. After one full cycle of energy, I took a deep breath and drew the sword's essence into my body. The spiritual sword physically shrank as its power flooded into me. It felt like a tidal wave crashing through my veins. The energy hammered against my internal organs and bones. It was a searing, agonizing pain that almost made me black out, but I gritted my teeth and held on. Cultivation was never meant to be easy. If I didn't get stronger, my father's reputation would be dragged through the mud and my family would be erased. Break for me, I roared internally. A muffled explosion echoed inside my chest. The barrier of the 4th level shattered instantly. I had reached the 5th level of the spirit chi realm, but I wasn't done. There was still a massive amount of unrefined energy left from the sword. Suddenly, the heavenly earth sword, the rusty blade my father left me, began to tremble violently. Before I could react, it acted like a vacuum, sucking every drop of the remaining spiritual energy out of my body and into its own blade. The ancient runes on the sword flickered with a light so intense it felt like a finished saint-grade weapon. The spiritual sword I had been refining turned into a piece of useless scrap metal, its impurities ejected from my body. I stared at the rusty sword, stunned. You just stole my energy? I was speechless. If that energy had stayed in my body, I could have reached the 7th level. Now, I was stuck at the 5th. Finally, I've awakened. A voice rang out. It was crisp, like the chime of a silver bell, yet it carried an air of absolute authority, the voice of an empress. I jumped, my soul power immediately flaring out from my core to scan the room. Who's there? I demanded. My eyes fell back on the heavenly earth sword. The sword was talking to me. It fell silent for a moment, as if lost in ancient memories. You're the one who absorbed my power, I said, my face darkening. That power wasn't fully yours yet, the voice replied calmly. Besides, that energy allowed me to wake up. You should be grateful. The sword glowed, the light enveloping me like a shroud. The myriad Tao body, the only one in existence, the voice whispered, as if reading my very soul. A golden dantian, soul talent that surpasses ancient records. And most importantly, the strength of a single thought. No wonder you could cultivate the heavenly earth technique and wake me. My heart hammered in my chest. She saw through everything in a second. Who are you? Why are you inside this sword? She didn't answer. Instead, the light intensified, and I was suddenly pulled into the world within the sword. It was a vast, white space, older and more powerful than before. The bookshelves had changed. The second row was now open. I caught glimpses of mid-grade and even high-grade saint techniques. If the outside world knew these existed, every sect in the empire would go to war just to catch a glimpse of them. A figure appeared in front of me. She wore white robes and stood with her back turned. Just her silhouette carried a pressure so immense it made the royalty of the Yin Empire look like peasants. "I've almost forgotten my own identity," she said. "But since you woke me, consider these a gift." She flicked her wrist, and 3 ancient scrolls flew toward me. Ancient alchemy, ancient rune arts, ancient smithing. I gasped. Any one of these was a priceless treasure. Also, she continued, deep within the Tsangyun Mountains, a spiritual tool is about to emerge. The question is, do you have the courage to take it? My eyes lit up. With the Heavenly Earth technique, I needed spiritual items to level up quickly. "Why are you helping me?" "Helping you is helping myself," she murmured. We were in the same boat now. "But be warned. That place is crawling with beasts, and even spirit beasts. There will be others fighting for it. Do you dare to go?" I knew the Tsangyun Mountains. They were the most dangerous range in the region. The spirit grave we just left was only on the outskirts. The deep interior held monsters that could kill even the Great Elder. I smiled. Why wouldn't I? If I don't go, I won't get stronger, and the Yi family dies. If I go, I might die, but at least I have a chance. My father always said there is no smooth path in cultivation. Good, the woman said. Spend the next few days training. The seal on that treasure will break in 10 days. That is when the Real fight begins. 10 days, I repeated, closing my eyes and sinking back into my meditation. While I began my grueling training, the atmosphere inside the Qi family manor was as heavy as a tomb. Qi Dao sat in the shadows, his face twisted with a murderous rage that promised blood. Qi Dao's eyes were bloodshot, burning with a murderous rage that seemed to set the air on fire. Before him lay a row of cold, stiff corpses. They were the youths of the Qi family, including Qi Hua. After I left the spirit grave, the Wu family had gone back in to retrieve the bodies. Qi Dao let out a roar that shook the manor walls. He couldn't believe it. The Yi family had wiped out every single youth from both the Qi and Feng families. Qi Changjian frowned, his voice trembling. He said it shouldn't have been possible. He suspected that either I or Yi Tong had hidden talent, or perhaps we had found a powerful spiritual sword inside the grave. The other elders gnashed their teeth in frustration. They realized that with a spiritual weapon in hand, a cultivator could punch way above their weight class. Qi Dao nodded grimly. He admitted he had underestimated us. But Qi Shan just stood there, his expression cold and arrogant. He asked if I or Yi Tong could possibly reach the Jiedan realm in such a short time. The room went silent. Everyone knew that was impossible. Even a genius couldn't make that leap in a few weeks. Qi Shan promised that as long as we weren't in the Jiedan realm, we were walking dead men. Qi Dao's face was like ice. He hated that he had to wait 20 more days for the protection on the Yi family to fade, but he had no choice. Then, he turned to Qi Changjian and asked about their secret plan in the deep Tsangyun Mountains. Qi Changjian assured him that only the Qi and Yun families knew about the treasure. A few days ago, an elder had spotted a spiritual glow deep in the forest. It was a high-grade spiritual tool about to be born. It wasn't a saint-grade item, but its value was still astronomical. They knew the birth of such a weapon would attract dangerous beasts, so they had recruited the powerful Hua Papa to join them. Qi Dao smiled, already imagining the weapon in his hands. He felt like the treasure already belonged to the Qi family. While they plotted, I was deep in my own world. 10 days passed in a flash. I exhaled a cloud of murky air and opened my eyes. A grin spread across my face. I had reached the 6th level of the spirit Qi realm. My soul power was denser than ever, and I had mastered a high-grade saint technique called one arrow piercing the sky. Even without using a spiritual tool, I was confident I could kill someone like Feng Chan now. My heavenly earth sword had also evolved after absorbing the energy from the previous spiritual blade. It was now a mid-grade spiritual tool. With it in my hand, I could take on a 9th-level spirit Qi cultivator and win. It was time. I stood up and headed straight for the heart of the Tsangyun Mountains. As I entered the deep forest, a thick, purple miasma swirled around me. This poison gas could kill an ordinary man in seconds. I didn't use any spells to block it. I wanted to test my earth body. To my surprise, the gas dissipated the moment it got within an inch of my skin. My constitution was so powerful that the poison couldn't even touch me. The woman inside the sword spoke up, her voice filled with rare praise. She told me that the earth body was unique in this world, and using it just to block poison was a waste of its potential. I wanted to ask her more, but she went silent again. I didn't let it bother me. I moved through the brush like a predator, closing the distance to the treasure. Suddenly, my soul power flared. I sensed something watching me. Before I could turn, a massive shape lunged out of the shadows. It was a fiery tiger, a beast equivalent to a 9th-level spirit chi cultivator. Its claws were like red-hot knives. I didn't dodge. I threw a punch wrapped in crackling lightning. The impact sounded like a drum. The tiger was sent flying back several meters. It roared, its claws glowing with spiritual energy as it charged again. I whispered that it was a perfect warm-up. I unleashed my flying sword art, sending 10 glowing blades of energy whistling through the air. The tiger shredded the first 6 with its claws, but the 7th left a deep, bloody gash on its leg. The beast howled in pain and spat a gout of flame, melting my remaining energy blades. But I was already moving. I triggered my soul power, firing 1,000 silk needles directly into its mind. The tiger froze, its soul shuddering. I didn't give it a second chance. I drew the heavenly earth sword and drove it straight through the tiger's skull. I carved out its beast core, a valuable prize for any cultivator, and tucked it away before sprinting deeper into the woods. Half an hour later, I perched on the branch of an ancient tree. Ahead of me, the ground was pulsing with a brilliant spiritual light. The energy was surging upward, ready to break through the earth. But the area was crawling with monsters, including a powerful spirit beast. Then, I heard voices. Below me, the Chi family had arrived, along with the Yun family. Chi Dao, Chi Shan, and that old hag Huapapo were all there. They had brought their best fighters. They moved with brutal efficiency, slaughtering the guardian beasts in less than 100 breaths. I frowned, realized that taking the treasure from them would be difficult. But then, a massive, earth-shaking roar echoed through the valley. My smile returned. The Chi family wasn't the only thing drawn to the light. A Dongling realm beast, something far more terrifying than anything they had faced, was crashing through the trees toward them. I realized I wasn't the one in trouble. They were. There wasn't just one beast. There were 3. Chi Dao took a deep breath and drew a glowing spirit blade, his eyes tracking the massive creatures closing in on their position. Beside him, Huapapa didn't even need a weapon. She released the full pressure of her 6th-level Dongling cultivation, and the air itself seemed to tremble. Then, the ground screamed. A pillar of golden light erupted from the valley floor, piercing the night sky. The treasure had finally broken its ancient seal. The brilliance was so intense that it turned the surrounding forest into day, sending a shockwave of energy all the way back to Tsangyan City. Back in the city, people scrambled to their balconies. Everyone knew what that light meant. A relic had surfaced in the Tsangyan Mountains. Even the city lord's mansion was put on high alert. A manager there noted that while they usually ignored common spirit tools, a light this pure indicated a high-grade treasure, something just below the saint grade. They didn't waste a second. The mansion dispatched its strongest experts to join the hunt. But inside the mountains, the situation was pure chaos. Roars echoed from every direction. Chi Dao, Chi Changjian, and Chi Changxiang were locked in a brutal struggle with the guardian beasts. Even the young prodigy, Chi Shan, found himself surrounded. Chi Dao was a monster on the battlefield. With his blade spirit body and his spirit blade, he hacked deep into a beast's flank. But the blood only made the monsters more frenzied. Their eyes turned a deep, murderous red. Chi Dao growled at his men to finish them quickly. He knew that the longer they stayed here, the more likely someone else would interfere. I watched everything from the high branches of a tree. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was the only window I would get. I pulled a dark cloak from my storage bag, draped it over my shoulders, and dropped. The moment my feet hit the dirt, I was a blur. I sprinted straight toward the golden glow. My hand shot out, fingers closing around the cold metal of the spirit tool. I didn't stop to look at it. I shoved it into my storage bag and pivoted, bolting back into the darkness. Who's there? Chi Dao's roar rattled my teeth. You dare steal from the Chi family? You're dead. I didn't look back. I didn't care. In my head, I was laughing. I wasn't just stealing a treasure, I was stealing it from them. Chi Dao realized I wasn't stopping. He turned to Chi Changxiang, a middle-aged deacon at the second-level Jiedan realm. He ordered him to hunt me down at all costs. The other elders stepped in to take over Chi Changxiang's fight, freeing him to pursue me. Chi Shan finished off the beast in front of him and joined the chase, his face twisted with rage. I pushed my speed to the absolute limit. My soul power was focused, guiding my steps through the dense undergrowth. But the gap in our cultivation was too wide. I was only at the 6th-level Spirit Chi realm. A Jiedan expert was simply faster. After a few minutes of sprinting, I could hear their boots thudding closer and closer behind me. Suddenly, a massive tree trunk came flying through the air. Chi Changxiang had smashed it toward me with a single palm strike. I spun around and threw a punch, shattering the wood into splinters. The impact stopped my momentum dead. "I don't care who you are," Chi Changxiang said, stepping out from the shadows. "In this city, stealing from the Chi family is a death sentence." I narrowed my eyes. I kicked the ground, sending a massive cloud of dust and sand into the air to blind them. Then I bolted again. Chi Changxiang let out a cold snort. With a wave of his hand, a burst of energy cleared the dust instantly. He and Chi Shan stayed right on my heels, playing with me like a cat with a mouse. They knew I was only a spirit Chi cultivator. To them, I was already a corpse. My breath was coming in ragged gasps. My face was pale, and the pressure was becoming unbearable. But then, I caught a scent on the wind. It was sharp and metallic. Ahead of me was a dark cave entrance. I recognized that smell, a purple flamestone lion. These beasts were nightmares. Even a young one was at the Jiedan realm, and an adult could match a Dongling expert. It was a suicide mission, but if I stayed here, I was dead anyway. I chose the lion. I dove into the cave. Chi Changxiang and Chi Shan skidded to a halt at the entrance. They recognized the scent too. They shared a look of disbelief. To them, I had just crawled into a grave. They started moving into the cave slowly, cautious of the beast but unwilling to let the treasure go. Deep inside, the air was thick with heat. I saw it, a young purple flamestone lion about a meter long. It stared at me with confused, golden eyes. Then, the natural aggression of its species took over. It bared its teeth, ready to pounce. It was at the 1st-level Jiedan realm, and its physical strength was far beyond any human at that level. I had one card left to play. Beasts have powerful bodies, but their souls are often their weak point. I wondered if the ancient beast-taming art I had found in the sword space would work. I channeled every drop of soul power I had into my Dantian. "Tame," I whispered. A glowing purple rune formed in the air and slammed into the lion's forehead. Inside the sword space, the mysterious woman shook her head. My soul power was only equivalent to a 7th-level spirit Chi cultivator. Trying to tame a Jiedan beast was insane. The lion roared, the rune flickering and cracking under its willpower. It lunged at me, jaws open. I didn't flinch. I didn't retreat. I pushed harder, forcing my soul to its absolute breaking point. In that moment of pure terror, something snapped. My soul power surged, breaking through to the 8th-level spirit Chi equivalent. The rune stabilized and glowed with a blinding light. The lion's eyes went dull and misty. Its claws retracted. The violence drained out of it, replaced by a strange, silent connection to my own mind. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and let out a shaky breath. I could feel its heartbeat. I could feel its loyalty. The woman in the sword was silent for a long time. She was stunned. In such a short time, I hadn't just used the art. I had mastered it to a level she didn't think was possible for someone as weak as me. I looked back toward the cave entrance. The Chi family was coming. But now, I wasn't alone. My talent and sheer willpower had exceeded even the mysterious woman's expectations. Inside the sword space, she watched me, her mind racing. Perhaps with me, she could truly be reborn. Perhaps the impossible tasks she carried could actually be achieved. She felt a spark of hope ignite within her. Suddenly, a massive boom echoed through the cave. Chi Changxiang and Chi Dao had burst inside. They looked at me with cold, murderous eyes. "Boy, you have nowhere left to run," Chi Changxiang sneered. "Is that so?" I replied. I kept my voice raspy and disguised. I didn't want them knowing my true identity just yet. I pointed a finger at the intruders. Go. Kill them all. The purple flamestone lion let out a bone-chilling roar. It lunged straight for the Chi family experts. What? How is this possible? They froze in shock. They couldn't understand it. Did this kid grow up in the wild? Was he some kind of beast whisperer? Songyun City had alchemists and weaponsmiths, but a beast tamer? That was unheard of. Even so, you're still going to die. Chi Changxiang roared, recovering from his surprise. Die? I let out a cold laugh. If they had caught me moments ago, I would be dead. But now, the tables had turned. I ignored their fight and sat down cross-legged. I began to circulate the heavenly earth art. The lion was only at the first level of the Jiedan realm. It could only hold them off for a short time. My only hope was to break through right here, right now. My eyes locked onto the ancient bell floating nearby. It was an ancient spiritual treasure, pulsing with a terrifying amount of energy. If used as a weapon, it could shake the world. No wonder the Chi family was so desperate for it. They probably weren't the only ones. Half the powers in Songyun City were likely on their way here. But they were too late. The treasure was mine, and I was going to swallow it. Refine, I screamed in my mind. The heavenly earth art roared to life. The ancient bell vibrated violently, resisting my pull, but it eventually shrank until I swallowed it whole. The moment it entered my body, it began to toll. Asterisk dong, 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 asterisk. The sound waves shattered my internal composure. I sprayed a mouthful of blood, my skin bulging as if I were about to explode. Stop. You're forcing it, the woman's voice echoed in my head. Your strength isn't enough to suppress a high-grade spiritual treasure. Your body will burst. Spit it out. Spit it out? Never. What enters my body stays in my body. Refine it. I growled through gritted teeth. The bell tolled again. Cracks began to spiderweb across my skin. I was literally falling apart, but I didn't stop. I pushed the art to its absolute limit. The woman watched in silence, stunned by my madness. She thought I was committing suicide. But then, the bell's resistance wavered. A flood of pure, ancient spiritual energy erupted from it, flowing directly into my dantian. Boom. In an instant, I smashed through the barrier to the 7th-level spirit chi realm. But I wasn't done. I kept pushing. The feeling of exploding began to recede as the energy settled. This lunatic actually did it, the woman whispered, a small smile playing on her lips. Once the first wave was tamed, the rest followed like a river. My golden dantian was unique. It required several times more energy than a normal person to level up. Even so, the sheer power of the ancient bell was enough. I surged past the 8th level and slammed into the 9th-level spirit chi realm. I opened my eyes and exhaled a long breath. The bell had been completely refined, its impurities seeping out of my pores as dark mist. With the breakthrough, every injury I had sustained was instantly healed. That was the power of the myriad Tao Earth body. Nearby, the lion let out a pained roar. It was covered in deep gashes. Die, you beast! Chi Changxiang yelled, thrusting his long spear. The lion blocked it, but the wound was deep. Chi Changxiang and his men were also bruised and bleeding from the struggle, but they were grinning. They thought they had won. They thought the end was near. Kill it, they shouted, rushing forward for the final blow. My eyes turned cold. That lion was mine now. If they dared to hurt my beast, they would pay in blood. I moved. I was a blur as I drew the heavenly earth sword. The Chi family members didn't expect me to act. To them, I was just a weak kid at the 6th level. I'll handle this brat. One of them laughed, swinging his blade at me. Our weapons clashed. The man's face went pale instantly. Wait, something's wrong. He didn't understand. They had been so focused on the lion that they hadn't noticed my transformation. How could a 6th-level cultivator jump to the 9th level in a matter of minutes? He didn't have time to find the answer. My sword pierced his heart. I didn't stop. I spun, my blade trailing light. I remembered how my father, Yi Xiaodian, used to fight on the city walls. My movements mirrored his pure, lethal efficiency. Slash, slash, slash. 3 more strikes. 3 more bodies hit the floor. In seconds, only Chi Changxiang and Chi Dao were left standing. Impossible, Chi Changxiang hissed, his teeth chattering. Before he could recover, the lion pounced. He barely managed to bring his spear up, channeling every bit of his Jiedan power into a desperate defense. The lion's claws locked onto the spear's shaft, pinning it down. Now, 1,000 silk needles. I roared internally. I unleashed a burst of soul power. Dozens of invisible needles slammed into Qi Chanxiang's mind. He screamed in agony. Soul pain is 10 times worse than physical pain. He was a second-level Jiedan expert, so he didn't pass out, but he froze for a split second. That was all I needed. I channeled my spirit Qi into the most powerful move I knew, the Saint-grade technique, one sword piercing the heavens. The sword glowed with a terrifying light. The air in the cave grew heavy with killing intent. I lunged, a single point of light aimed at his throat. Qi Chanxiang's eyes widened. He tried to move, tried to block, but his mind was still reeling from the soul attack. It was too late. The sword flashed. His head flew into the air, a look of pure confusion frozen on his face. He never understood how a Jiedan master could fall to a spirit Qi kid. I didn't pause to celebrate. I saw Qi Shan, the one I truly wanted, backing away toward the cave entrance. He was smart. He saw the tide had turned and was trying to bolt. Chase him, I commanded the lion. We burst out of the cave, but I stopped dead. The sound of rhythmic footsteps echoed through the trees. Qi Dao and a fresh wave of Qi family reinforcements had arrived. Qi Shan let out a sigh of relief when he saw his people. But then, a streak of purple light blurred past me. The lion wasn't finished. Qi Dao and his men gritted their teeth, sensing the beast's power. The real battle was just beginning. I stood there, chest heaving, as the dust settled. The sound of my own voice surprised me. It was raw and commanding, almost like I had grown up in these wild woods myself. With the help of the little purple flame lion, I had done the impossible. I had slaughtered Qi Chanxiang and his entire squad of elite guards. "You monster!" Qi Shan hissed, his voice trembling with a mix of fury and genuine terror. The rest of the reinforcements froze. Even Qi Dao, the head of the Qi family, stared at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. His gaze shifted from the headless corpse of his brother to me, then to the snarling lion at my side. I could see the internal struggle in his face. He wanted my head, but he was terrified of the beast. "Retreat!" Qi Dao finally barked, his voice cracking. "Move, now!" I watched them scramble away into the darkness of the mountain. I let out a long, heavy sigh. I was disappointed. If I had been just a fraction faster, I could have ended Qi Shan right there and then. But I knew better than to push my luck. I could control this cub for now, but if the fully grown mother purple flame lion showed up, I was as good as dead. I knelt down and looked at the little cub. "Little guy, I owe you one. I've undone the beast-controlling seal. You're free now." I patted its head, feeling a strange bond. If we meet again, I'll find a way to repay this debt. Without looking back, I turned and bolted into the trees. Behind me, the Tsanyan mountain range was screaming. The birth of the spiritual treasure had drawn every power-hungry cultivator in the city, and the forest was in total chaos. But I didn't care about the treasure anymore. I stayed low, moving through the shadows, until I finally slipped back through the gates of the Yi family estate. I collapsed into a chair in my room, finally letting out the breath I'd been holding. I was at the 9th level of Spirit Qi now. My soul power was equivalent to an 8th level Spirit Qi practitioner. In a straight fight, I could probably hold my own against a 1st level Jiedan master. To anyone else, that sounded insane. The gap between Spirit Qi and the Jiedan realm was like a canyon. Usually, 10 9th level experts couldn't even scratch a single Jiedan master. But I was different. My heavenly earth technique forced me to swallow weapons, tempering my bones, organs, and meridians until my body was as tough as a demonic beast. My golden dantian purified my spirit Qi to a level others couldn't dream of. Still, it wasn't enough. Qi Shan was already at the 2nd level of Jiedan. The gap was closing, but the Tsanyan battle was only 10 days away. I needed more power. "Is there anywhere else in the city, or even the empire, where I can find spiritual weapons?" I whispered, sending a mental message to the mysterious woman inside the sword. I felt like she had a 6th sense for finding blades. "I don't know." Her voice echoed coldly in my mind. I sighed. At my current level, low-grade trash wouldn't help me anymore. I needed high-grade spiritual weapons, or even saint-grade gear. But those were legendary treasures, not things you just stumbled upon. My father, Yi Xiaodian, always told me there are no shortcuts in cultivation. Only hard work builds a foundation that won't crumble. I sat cross-legged on my bed and dove back into my meditation. While I practiced, the Qi family manor was a tomb. Qi Dao was losing his mind. First his son Qi Shui was killed, then his elite youths were wiped out, and now his brother was dead. If I find out who that kid was, I'll tear him into 1,000 pieces. Qi Dao screamed, smashing a table. Forget it, Granny Hua said, her voice cold and dismissive. She was getting tired of the Qi family's failures. Qi Shan said the boy could talk to beasts. He's probably some wild brat from the mountains. You can't fight a purple flame lion. Just focus on the Tsanyan battle. Qi Dao nodded frantically. My son Qi Shan is at the 2nd level of Jiedan. No one in this city can touch him except maybe the city governor's people. He will sweep the competition. Granny Hua smiled, but it wasn't a kind look. The Yi family must fall. Yi Xiaoyan's name must be erased from history. I want the whole city to watch their pathetic end. Once they are gone, the Yun family will rewrite the history books. Yi Xiaodian won't be remembered as a hero. He'll be a villain or forgotten entirely. I didn't know about their schemes. I couldn't afford to care. I spent the next few days locked in my courtyard, pushed to the absolute limit. Suddenly, my eyes snapped open. My soul core hummed with a new frequency. My soul power had finally broken through to the 9th level of spirit chi. But it wasn't just raw power. I could now manifest complex runes. Wind rune, I shouted. A green glow surrounded me, and I felt my body become light as a feather. Lightning rune, I flicked my wrist, and a bolt of crackling energy slammed into the ground. Mist rune, a thick, white fog erupted, completely masking my presence. I pulled my soul power back, breathing heavily. These runes were incredible. If I could link dozens or hundreds of them, I could create formations. I could build a great spirit array to gather energy for my entire family for generations. I didn't realize it, but the woman in the sword was watching me in total shock. She had seen geniuses before, people recorded in ancient legends, but even the best of them took 3 months to condense their first rune. I had just mastered 10 of them in a few days. If the world knew, every master in the empire would be shaking with envy. Finally, I checked my internal energy. I was at the very peak of the 9th level of spirit chi. I could step into the Jiedan realm at any second. But I held back. Jiedan was about forming a spirit pill in the Dantian. The more concentrated the energy, the stronger the pill. I didn't want to be a normal master. I wanted a foundation so powerful that I could crush people 2 or 3 levels above me. I closed my eyes again, focusing every ounce of my will on tempering that golden core, refining it over and over until it was perfect. The battle was coming, and I was going to be ready. I needed a rock-solid foundation. Only then would I be truly powerful when I finally stepped into the Jiedan realm. Tomorrow was the day of the Tsanyan battle. I felt the surge of energy within me and narrowed my eyes. Almost every cultivator in the city would be there to watch. The Qi family wanted to destroy us. The Yun family wanted us erased. They wanted my father's name stripped from the Tsangyun Saint Monument forever. Yun Feishue and Yun Feiyue wanted me dead and my family in the dirt. I clenched my fists, a cold fire burning in my chest. Not a chance. Tomorrow, I would show everyone that my father's glory was not to be defiled. As his son, I wouldn't let them spit on his legacy. I walked out of the Yi family estate. I wanted to head to the Spirit Pavilion to see if I could find any more resources. If I could get my hands on more spiritual energy, my chances for tomorrow would be even higher. Great Elder Yi Long and the others didn't stop me. They figured the Qi and Yun families wouldn't strike today. The enemies wanted me to watch my family fall with my own eyes. Little did I know, Yi Long and the elders were already losing hope. They had spent everything on pills, but Yi Ran had only reached the 8th level of spirit Qi, and Yi Tong had just touched the 9th. Against Qi Shan, a Jiedan realm master, they knew they were outmatched. They were already planning to sneak me out of the city during the chaos, ready to die just to give me a chance to rebuild the family years later. I didn't know about their plan. I walked straight toward the Spirit Pavilion. The streets were electric. The Tsangyun battle was the only thing anyone was talking about. Betting houses were everywhere. I glanced at the odds posted on a board. The Chi family was at 1.1. The Fong family was at 1.9. The Wu family sat at 3. And the Yi family? We were at 50. I shook my head. No one believed in us. Chi Shan was a second-level Jiedan master. The Fong family had a genius named Fong Shuo, who had also reached Jiedan. Even if they took each other out, people thought the Wu family would win before us. Some people mentioned my father, Yi Xiaodian, and how his blood once stained the city walls in defense of this place. But then they whispered about the Yun family. Yun Feishue was a saint now. Even mentioning her name felt dangerous to them. Look, isn't that Yi Yin? Someone whispered. I thought they'd have hidden him away by now. They laughed, thinking my dantian was still broken. I ignored them. One day, I would show them that the Yun family was nothing but ants beneath my feet. I stepped into the spirit pavilion. I walked the aisle slowly, but my luck seemed to have run out. Just as I was about to leave, the woman in the sword spoke to me. To your left. That purple stone. Buy it. I was stunned. She rarely spoke first. I looked at the dull purple rock. Is it spiritual energy? I asked internally. No, she replied. But it's more valuable. I went to the stall. It was the same old man from before. He wanted 20 spirit coins. I paid him without a word and tucked the stone away. With this, the woman whispered, your chances tomorrow just got better. I left the pavilion, my mind focused on the stone. I could feel a faint ripple of soul power inside it. It was a treasure. Suddenly, a voice blocked my path. Yi Yin. I stopped. It was Qi Shan and Qi Changjian. We were standing right in front of a massive betting house. What a coincidence, Qi Shan sneered. I'm here to bet on my family taking the crown tomorrow. Do you have the guts to bet on yours? I looked at him and smiled coldly. Shouldn't you be busy at a funeral? I didn't think you'd have the heart for gambling. His face turned red with rage. Qi Changjian looked like he wanted to kill me on the spot. Laugh while you can, Qi Shan hissed. Tomorrow, you'll watch your family rot. Your father. I cut him off. Tomorrow, the Yi family will still be standing tall in this city. They burst out laughing, their voices full of mockery. I just turned away. I walked toward the entrance of the betting house. It was run by the city lord's mansion, so they were honest. I checked the board again. The odds for the Yi family had jumped to 100 to 1. I grinned. It was time to make some money. The odds shifted to 100 to 1. Who are you betting on? Yi Yin? The manager asked. His name was Tsang Song, an official from the city lord's mansion. He looked at me with a mocking sneer, his eyes filled with pity. I looked back at him with the exact same expression. I didn't come here to gamble. I came here to make the city lord cry. I slammed a beast essence onto the counter. It was from a 9th-level spirit chi beast I had hunted in the mountains. It was worth at least 200 spirit coins, a massive sum for any family. I pushed it toward the Yi family slot. I'm betting on the Yi family, I said. At 100 to 1 odds, if I won, I'd walk away with 100 of these essences. The room went dead silent. Then, the laughter started. Is he insane? Someone whispered. There's a reason no one is betting on the Yi family. They thought I was just handing a fortune over to the city lord for free. Song Song stared at me, his eyes narrowing. Are you sure? He asked. I'm sure, I replied. He laughed and quickly wrote out the receipt. I took the paper and walked out of the betting house without looking back. Is that him? A girl in a cloak whispered from the shadows of the crowd. An old man stood beside her. Yes, Mississippi. The girl looked disappointed. Her grandfather had been saved by my father, Yi Xiaodian, years ago. He wanted to repay that debt by saving me from the upcoming slaughter. But seeing me gamble away my family's resources made her lose all respect for me. Is this the man we are supposed to protect? She asked. We would have to offend the Yun family and a saint for a fool like this. It's not worth it. The old man sighed. My father had been a legend, a talent who could have become a saint if he had lived. But his son seemed like a failure. We'll see tomorrow, the old man said. If there's a chance, we'll spirit him out of the city. If not, I'll just have to apologize to your grandfather. I didn't hear them. I didn't care what they thought. I went straight back to the Yi house and locked my door. I pulled out the dull purple stone I had bought earlier. I tried to push my soul power into it, but the stone let out a low hum and violently repelled me. Interesting, I muttered. I could feel a massive amount of soul power trapped inside. I had to break it open. I used my flying sword technique, sending a surge of sword chi against the rock. The sound of metal hitting stone echoed through the room, but the rock didn't have a single scratch. It was incredibly hard. I had no choice. I pulled out the Heavenly Earth Sword. I channeled every bit of my energy, focusing a Saint-grade strike into the blade. Crack! The stone split. A brilliant purple light flooded the room. Inside the shell was a jade pendant. A soul jade. I had read about these in the ancient books within the sword space. Soul masters would condense their lifetime of power into these stones. They were priceless and nearly impossible to find in our empire. For a normal cultivator, it was just a rock. For a soul master like me, it was a godsend. This is enough to push me into the Jiedan realm, I whispered. I reached out to the woman inside the sword space to thank her. Don't bother, she replied. The stronger you are, the better it is for me. Just remember you owe me a few favors. What kind of favors? I asked. You're too weak to know yet, she said. I smiled. It was always the same answer. I sat cross-legged and began the Heavenly Earth technique. I shattered the soul jade, and a wave of raw soul energy exploded into the air. I inhaled sharply, drawing every drop of that energy into my soul core. My spirit expanded. My senses grew razor-sharp. Crack! The barrier in my mind shattered. I had moved past the spirit chi level. I was now a Jiedan realm soul master. My soul core turned a brilliant, solid gold. In the world of soul masters, your talent is measured by the stars on your core. 1 star means your journey ends here. 100 stars means you're a genius. 1,000 stars is the mark of a future emperor. 1,000 stars. The woman in the sword whispered, her voice trembling. Suddenly, the room was blinded by light. 10,000 stars erupted from my core, swirling around me like a galaxy. The woman went completely silent. This shouldn't have been possible. I had broken every law of cultivation she knew. The light faded, and I opened my eyes. I felt a power I had never known. Even though my physical cultivation was still lower, my soul power was now strong enough to kill a second-level Jiedan expert like Qi Changjian with a single thought. I was finally ready for tomorrow. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. I hadn't expected my soul power to break through before my physical cultivation, but the cold light in my eyes told a different story. Yin Fei Shua. Today, I was going to make sure your names vanished from the Tsangyan Holy Cup forever. The night passed in a blur of meditation. As dawn broke, the entire Tsangyan city began to boil with excitement. Crowds of cultivators flooded into the Tsangyan square, packing the stands to catch a glimpse of the massive Holy Cup standing in the center. People whispered as they looked at the 10 names carved upon it, the pride of our city. It's a shame, I heard someone sigh in the crowd. Yi Xiaoyan's name will be erased today. Back then, when the city was besieged and spirit beasts were at the walls, Yi Xiaoyan stood alone with his sword and saved us all, another added. But the Yi family offended a saint. In the Wanyan Empire, a saint's word is law. The Yi family is finished. I heard that useless kid Yi Yin even bet the family's survival on a gamble at the dens. What a joke, someone sneered. Back at the Yi estate, the atmosphere was suffocating. Great Elder Yi Long's face was ashen. You're saying the city gates are sealed? The city lord's mansion has locked everything down, Great Elder, a steward reported, his voice trembling. They want to wipe us out root and branch, Yi Long hissed, his fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. He wasn't afraid to die, but he had promised my father he would protect me. Suddenly, another steward rushed in. Great Elder, there are people outside who say they've come to save young Master Yin. Yi Long froze. Who? Bring them in immediately. A moment later, 2 figures entered the hall, cloaked in heavy robes. When they pulled back their hoods, I saw a beautiful young girl, maybe 16 or 17, dressed in emerald green. Beside her stood an elderly man. He was short, almost hunched like a child, but the aura radiating from him was terrifying. The spirit platform realm? Yi Long gasped. The old man smiled thinly. Good eyes. In all of Tsangyan City, only the city lord's mansion was rumored to have a cultivator of that level. Even the heads of the Qi and Fong families were only at the 6th level of the spirit movement realm. My grandfather owes Yi Xiaoyan a debt of gratitude, the girl said. We are here to repay it. Yilong's eyes widened. You're from the Lu family in the imperial capital? You're the grandchildren of the southern king, Lu Zhen. The girl nodded. I am Lu Qianqian. Xiaodian mentioned the king once. Yilong sighed. But he considered his help a passing favor. I never thought the king would remember it after all these years. Can you truly save Yenner? There is a way, Lu Qianqian said, her voice serious. But it depends on whether Yi Yin will agree. What is it? Yilong asked urgently. Yi Yin must publicly admit that the marriage contract with Yun Feishue was a forgery created by his father, she said. She had thought about this all night. With the city gates sealed, a secret escape was too risky. This was the only path she saw. You want me to bow my head? They aren't qualified. My voice rang out from the doorway, sharp as a blade. I walked into the hall, my eyes locked on Lu Qianqian. You want me to admit to a lie? To let my father's name be dragged through the mud just so I can crawl away with my life? If you came here as friends, you are welcome. But if this is your plan, then the door is right there. Lu Qianqian turned, her brow furrowing. Sometimes you have to bend to survive, Yin. If you admit the truth, the Yun family might show mercy. I laughed, a cold, harsh sound. Lower my head to the Qi family? To the Yuns? They don't have the right. A man lives for his pride. If I traded my father's honor and the dignity of the Yi family for a few more years of breathing, I wouldn't be his son. This is madness, Lu Qianqian's protector muttered. You're talking big for someone in your position. Who says the Yi family will lose? I countered. As long as I am here, the Yi family will stand at the peak of Tsungyun City today. Yilong stepped forward, his expression hardening with pride. He's right. The Yi family has never been afraid. If we must die, we die standing. If that is your choice, Lu Qianqian said, her voice cold with frustration, then I have nothing more to say. She turned and swept out of the hall. Yilong looked at me, a glimmer of a smile on his face. You have your father's spirit, Yenner. Let's go. Call the youngsters. It's time. The entire Yi family gathered in the courtyard. We stood before the ancestral hall, facing my father's memorial tablet. The Yi family was once nothing in this city, Yilong shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. It was Xiaodian who carried us on his back. He gave us weapons, pills, and the techniques we use today. If he hadn't stayed to protect us, he would have been a saint by now. Today, we face life or death. But before we go, every one of you will light incense for him. The air grew heavy. No one spoke. No one turned back. We lit the incense, the smoke rising toward the sky, and then, as one, we marched toward the square. Yi ran and Yi Tong stepped forward first. They didn't hesitate. They lit the incense for my father, Yi Xiaodian, their faces solemn. Looking at these younger members of my clan, Yilong and Yi who sighed softly, they felt the weight of it. These kids were born into the Yi family, yet the family was struggling to protect them. If there's a next life, I hope to be born into the Yi family again, Yilong whispered. He looked toward the sky as if talking to my father. Xiaodian, if I die in this battle, I'll find you in the underworld. We can discuss cultivation techniques again. Following the lead of the younger generation, the rest of the Yi family stepped up one by one to offer incense. Finally, I moved forward. I looked at my father's tablet and felt a fire burning in my chest. Father, I muttered under my breath, your name will not be forgotten. It will remain on the Tsungyun holy monument forever. I placed the incense down and stepped back. Yilong's voice cut through the air like a blade. Move out. The gates swung open. The entire Yi family marched out of the courtyard, heading straight for Tsungyun Square. We left no one behind. Even the women and children came along. The streets were lined with onlookers, their eyes wide with shock. The Yi family is going all out? Even the children, someone whispered. Such powerful momentum. Is this the backbone of the Yi family? Another added. It's a pity, though. Today is likely their end. When we arrived at the square, the Qi and Feng families were already there. Qi Dao and Feng Lin sat together, their eyes locked on us. The killing intent radiating from them was thick enough to choke on. It wasn't directed at each other. It was aimed entirely at us. The city lord's guards have been watching the gates for days, Qi Dao said loudly, making sure I heard him. Today, the city is locked down. Not even a fly from the Yi family is getting out of Tsungyun City alive. Fong Lin nodded, his expression cold. Exactly. When you pull up weeds, you have to get the roots. Not one soul stays. Granny Hua sat nearby, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. She looked satisfied. After today, her mistress, Yun Feishua, wouldn't have any more troubles to worry about. Look, the Yi family is here. The crowd erupted as we entered the arena. Yi Long led us to our seats, choosing a spot not far from Qi Dao and Fong Lin. As soon as we sat, Qi Dao let out a cold laugh. Yi Long, you seem to be in a good mood today. Yi Long didn't even blink. Better than yours, Qi Dao. At least I don't have a dead son to mourn. Qi Dao's face turned purple with rage. He slammed his hand down. You? Today, my remaining son will shine, and his name will be carved into the holy monument. Your family is destined for a miserable end. Yi Long didn't respond. He looked calm, but I could feel his inner turmoil. He truly believed this might be the end for us. Up in the stands, Lu Qianqian sat with her elderly protector. Her eyes were fixed on me, filled with frustration. That boy is clueless, she hissed. He has no idea what he's up against. Young mistress, calm yourself, the old man replied, though his eyes also showed a hint of disdain. If he wants to die, I won't stop him, Lu Qianqian said. I want to see what qualifications he thinks he has. He claims neither the Qi family nor the Yun family can make him bow. I'll see if he's still this stubborn when the blade is at his throat. The old man sighed. He knew I had thrown away my only chance at survival because of my arrogance. Suddenly, a massive bell tolled. The sound echoed through the square, carrying a heavy, saint-level pressure that made everyone fall silent. The Tsangyan bell. The battle was about to begin. City Lord Song Sheng arrived with his entourage. Almost everyone stood up to greet him. His power in this city was absolute. But to everyone's surprise, Song Sheng walked over to Granny Hua and bowed slightly. I remember seeing you when Miss Feishua was a child, he said respectfully. Your presence here honors us. The crowd gasped. Song Sheng was a true Ling Tai realm expert, yet he was being humble toward a servant. It showed just how much power the Yun family held. Granny Hua just nodded dismissively. The city lord is too kind. Let the battle begin. Song Sheng took his seat at the center. His expression turned sharp. He burst out with spiritual energy, pointing a single finger toward the distance. A beam of energy shot out, traveling hundreds of feet before striking the Tsangyun Holy Monument. The crowd went wild. To strike something from that distance required incredible control. The elders whispered about the levels of cultivation, how a Ling Qi practitioner shapes energy, a Dong Ling practitioner masters it, and a Ling Tai practitioner can kill from hundreds of paces away. As the city lord's energy hit the monument, it began to glow. 10 names appeared at the top, shining brightly for the whole city to see. These were the legends of Tsangyan City. My father's name, Yi Shaodian, was right there. Granny Hua, Qi Dao, and Fong Lin all looked at his name with hatred. I looked at the name next to his, Yun Feishua. Seeing her name beside my father's made my blood boil. She didn't deserve to be anywhere near him. We must remember these 10 names, Song Sheng announced. However, the rules of the Tsangyun battle are simple. The final champion has the right to erase one name from this monument and replace it with their own. Everyone looked at our family. They all knew which name was going to be erased today. Yi Long gritted his teeth, but I just stared at the monument. My resolve was like iron. Song Sheng shouted again, and the monument released a second wave of light. The light hit the ground, forming complex runic patterns. A massive formation appeared. A teleportation array. The elders explained to the confused youths. The founder of our city wasn't just a saint. He was a master arrayist. Every year, the participants are randomly teleported into an illusionary realm. It feels completely real because it's constructed using the power of the mountains. This prevents anyone from cheating. Last time, it was the Tsangling mountain range, an old man muttered. Out of 1,300 participants, 70 died and hundreds were injured. Only 100 made it to the next round. The younger kids turned pale. This wasn't just a tournament, it was a meat grinder. Inside the illusion, the saint's power creates spirit beasts, and more importantly, participants are allowed to kill each other. All participants under the age of 20 step forward, a city official called out. Come and claim your life-protecting jade charms. A row of jade pendants sat on a table before us, each glowing with a faint, inner light. These were our lifelines. If we found ourselves in mortal danger inside the illusion, we just had to crush the jade. It would teleport us out instantly, saving our lives, but resulting in immediate disqualification. The youths from the various families stepped forward to claim theirs. I watched them, feeling the heavy gaze of the crowd. This first round was supposed to be a simple elimination match, but everyone in the stands was whispering the same thing. The Yi family wouldn't survive this. They didn't think we'd just be disqualified. They thought we'd be slaughtered before we even had the chance to break our jade. Up in the VIP seating, Lu Qianqian shook her head. She looked at me, probably waiting to see if my arrogance would finally crack. But I didn't flinch. I stepped forward, and for a moment, the entire plaza went silent. The leaders of the Qi family, the Fong family, and the Wu family all stared at me in shock. Even Granny Hua and the city governor's men looked stunned. My elders, Yi Long and Yi Hu, knew I had regained my spirit Qi, but they hadn't realized how much. They had tried to smuggle me out of the city yesterday, only to find the gates locked. They hadn't even asked what level I had reached. They probably assumed I was at the 5th or 6th level of spirit Qi, not strong enough to dominate, but enough to fight. They didn't stop me. They were ready to go down fighting, and so was I. Interesting, Fong Buyu muttered with a cold smirk. He was the Fong family's genius who had already stepped into the Jiedan realm. Nearby, Qi Shan's lips curled into a murderous grin. He caught his father's eye. Qi Dao leaned in and whispered something to him that made Qi Shan's smile grow even wider. The Yi family's jade charms have been tampered with by the city governor's office, Qi Dao hissed. I didn't hear the words, but I saw the malice in their eyes. They didn't just want us out. They wanted us dead, and they had rigged the safety net to make sure of it. Once everyone had their charms, the city governor's manager stepped forward. Enter the formation. If you cannot find your way out of the illusion within 2 hours, you are disqualified. We stepped into the massive runic circle. The manager pulled out a high-grade spirit stone and slammed it into the array's core. Light exploded beneath our feet, and in a heartbeat, the world vanished. The first round had officially begun. Back on the stands, the atmosphere stayed electric. With the kids gone, the elders started their own games. Yilong, Qi Dao's voice boomed across the plaza. This round is boring to watch. Let's make it interesting. I bet your entire family gets wiped out in this round. Do you have the guts to gamble? Yilong narrowed his eyes. What are you betting? Qi Dao laughed, a harsh, grating sound. I know your family is broke, so let's bet something else. One arm. If I lose, I cut off mine. If you lose yours. Do you dare? The crowd gasped. This wasn't a bet, it was a blood feud. Yilong hesitated, his brow furrowed. But right then, one of our family attendants rushed over. Elder, before he left, Yin told me to give you this letter. Yilong snatched the note and opened it. It was short, written in my handwriting. Asterisk, no matter who tries to bet with you, accept it. I will lead the Yi family out of that illusion, asterisk. Yilong stared at the paper for a long second. Then he looked up at Qi Dao with a fierce, newfound confidence. My Yi family has nothing to fear. If you want to bet, you've got one. The crowd went wild. They thought Yilong had lost his mind. The Yi family had no Jiedan realm cultivators in the hunt, while the Qi and Fong families had several. It was suicide. Yilong, Fong Ling from the Fong family chimed in, smiling like a wolf. My family wants in too. Another arm. Yilong laughed loudly, his voice echoing with defiance. Fine, I'll take all your bets. While the elders gambled with their lives, I opened my eyes inside the illusion. I was standing in a dense, humid forest. It looked exactly like the Canyuan Mountains, smelling of damp earth and pine. To anyone else, it would have felt 100% real, but as a soul master, I could see the faint shimmer of runes in the air. The great elder must have seen my note by now, I whispered to myself. I knew the Qi family's nature. They wouldn't be able to resist kicking us while we were down. You really think you can keep us from walking out of here? I focused my mind. When we were teleported, we were scattered. To survive, I needed to gather my family members immediately. I moved through the brush like a ghost. Being a soul master at the Jiedan level gave me a massive advantage. My spiritual sense acted like radar, mapping out everything around me. At the same time, Qishan and Fong Buyu were landing in their own sectors. They weren't worried. The city governor's office had sent them a secret message the night before, telling them exactly where the illusion would be set. They knew the terrain perfectly. Qishan looked at his jade charm. Beyond the normal glow, there was a tiny, hidden mark on it. By tapping into that mark, he could manipulate the power of the illusion itself to strike down his enemies. The city governor really went all out to please the Yun family, Qishan muttered. I don't even need to do this myself. I'm going to be the first one out of here and claim the top spot. He took off toward the exit, leaving the dirty work to the rest of his clan. The other Qi family disciples were already gathering at a prearranged landmark, a massive ancient tree. We're all here except for Qishan. One of them, Qi Ling, announced. The Fong family is likely doing the same. We split into 2 groups. Find the Yi kids and kill them on sight. If anything goes wrong, use the hidden power in the charms. It's as strong as a peak 9th level spirit Qi strike. Nothing they have can stop that. They fanned out, hunting for blood. But I was faster. Using my soul power, I tracked down Yi Ran within minutes. 15 minutes later, we found Yi Tong. That's our family's secret mark, Yi Ran said, pointing to a leaf carved into the bark of a tree. The others must be heading for the mountain pass up ahead. We moved quickly toward the pass, but as we approached, I felt a cold surge of killing intent. The Fong family was already there, waiting in the shadows with cruel smiles on their faces. Standing opposite the Fong family were Yi Yun and the other younger disciples of my clan. They looked cornered. I didn't expect to run into you all here, Fong Buin sneered. He wasn't quite at the Jiedan realm like Fong Buyu, but at nearly 20 years old, he had reached the 9th level of the spirit Qi realm. In this place, that made him a king. It's perfect. Now I can kill every single one of you at once. Kill them, Fong Buyu barked from the side. The Fong family disciples didn't hesitate. They lunged forward like a pack of wolves, blades flashing as they closed the distance. Fight, Yin shouted back. My family members didn't flinch. They had been raised with grit and iron wills. In the Yi family, we don't produce cowards. The sounds of clashing steel and exploding energy immediately filled the pass. It was a desperate struggle, but bravery only goes so far. Within moments, the gap in power became obvious. Fong Buin and his crew were simply too strong. My cousins were being pushed back, their formations breaking under the sheer weight of the assault. Time for you to die, Fong Buin laughed, his eyes cold and cruel. And don't even think about using those jade charms to escape. It's not going to happen. The Yi disciples shuddered. They looked at their charms, realizing they were useless. Death was staring them in the face, yet none of them begged for mercy. Suddenly, a tree branch whistled through the air like a spear. It moved so fast it was a blur. Before the lead Fong disciple could react, the branch pierced through his chest, pinning him to the ground. You think you can lay a hand on my family? I stepped out from the shadows, my voice echoing through the pass. Fong Buin and the others spun around, their eyes wide. Yi Ran, Yi Tong, and Yi Yen. A nasty grin spread across Fong Buin's face. I was looking for you. I guess I don't have to waste my breath searching anymore. Since you're all here, you can all die together. He stepped forward and swung his sword. A beam of sharp light shot toward us. He possessed a sword spirit body, and his strikes were powerful enough to cleave through solid rock. Yi Tong didn't hesitate. He tapped his foot and leaped in front of me, his own spirit Qi erupting. He swung his blade, meeting the attack head-on. The collision rang out like a bell. Fong Buin gasped as he was forced back a step. Even though Yi Tong had only recently reached the 9th level, his momentum was overwhelming. In a fight to the death, the bravest man wins. On the other side, Yi Ran moved like a whirlwind. Even at the 8th level, he was driving the Fong disciples back with sheer aggression. I didn't think you'd actually improved, Fong Buin said, his voice dropping to a low growl. But being here just guarantees your end. He pulled out his jade charm and channeled his Qi into it. The air around us began to hum. Suddenly, the energy of the entire illusion started swirling toward him, feeding into his body. The Yi disciples froze. They were furious. We were all part of the same Sungyun battle. Yet our charms were broken, while the Fong family could use theirs to draw power from the environment. It was a rigged game. With the extra power, Fong Buwen's aura flared. Die! He swung again, the surrounding energy forming a massive, dense blade of wind aimed straight at Yi Tong's throat. Yi Tong gritted his teeth, bracing for a blow he knew he couldn't block. Can't stop it, can you? Fong Buwen mocked. Go to hell. He never finished his sentence. A flash of sword light erupted from my position, faster than anything they had ever seen. Fong Buwen's eyes bulged. He tried to swing his sword to parry, but it was like trying to stop a tidal wave with a twig. My blade shattered his defense instantly. Impossible, he wheezed. The light tore through him, piercing his heart. He looked down at the hole in his chest, then up at me. He finally saw who had struck him. You? Yi Yan. He couldn't wrap his head around it. 9th level? How? Your Dantian was destroyed. You're not as stupid as you look, I said coldly. His eyes looked like they were going to pop out of his skull. He tried to say something else, but his strength failed him. He collapsed into the dirt, his life fading until he was nothing more than a corpse. The remaining Fong disciples were paralyzed with fear. If Fong Buwen was dead, they didn't stand a chance. They frantically grabbed their jade charms and crushed them, desperate to be teleported out. They let out sighs of relief as the transport light began to glow around them. You really think you're going anywhere? I narrowed my eyes. Yi Yan, even if you're at the 9th level, our charms are broken. In 10 breaths, we'll be gone, one of them yelled. 10 breaths is plenty of time to kill you all, I replied. I channeled my spirit chi, forming a long sword of pure energy in my hand. Thanks to my myriad Tao Earth body, I could manifest my chi into anything I desired. I flooded my legs with power, my speed doubling in an instant. I moved like a phantom through the trees. My blade was a blur of silver. Every time it flashed, another body hit the ground. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3. By the time the 10 breaths were up, 14 Fong family disciples lay dead in the dirt. Not a single one of them made it out alive. Yi Tong and Yi Ran stood there, stunned. Then, their faces lit up with pure joy. Little Yen, I can't believe you've reached this level. Yi Tong cheered. If your father knew, he'd be so proud. I nodded, feeling the warmth of my family's support. Let's move. We pushed deeper into the forest. As we passed a hidden cave, I felt a strange tug in my soul. As a soul master, I could sense things others couldn't. There's a massive amount of runic energy in there, I muttered. This must be where one of the formation cores is hidden. We entered the cave, but a thunderous roar immediately shook the walls. 5 massive beasts emerged from the darkness, their eyes glowing with hunger. Each one had the strength of a 9th-level spirit chi cultivator. Yi Tong and the others tensed up. Beasts like these had hides as tough as iron. I'll handle 4, I said, stepping forward. You take the last one. Before they could argue, I lunged. My sword whistled through the air, every strike aimed at a vital point. Even with their thick armor, the beasts couldn't withstand my sword intent. Within minutes, the 4 creatures were nothing but heaps of fur and blood. Yi Tong's group finished off the 5th one shortly after. We walked to the very back of the cave and found it, a glowing teleportation array exactly like the one in Sunyan Square. We found it, I said, looking at the swirling light. If we step inside, we can enter the next round through this, I said, looking at the swirling light of the array. The air in the cave was thick and rich with energy. Yi Ran and Yi Tong looked around, their eyes wide. The aura here is so dense, Yi Ran whispered. If we cultivate here for a bit, we could stabilize our power before moving on. I felt a weight lift off my chest. At the very least, the younger members of the Yi family were safe now, but I had other business to attend to. Stay here and consolidate your strength, I told them. If things get dangerous, don't hesitate. Step into the array and leave immediately. What about you? Yi Tong asked, his voice laced with worry. My expression hardened. The rest of the Qi and Fong families are still out there. I'm going to find them. The group stiffened. We're coming with you, Yi Ran insisted. No, Yi Tong interrupted, placing a hand on her shoulder. Let him go alone. In our current state, we'd only be a burden. But Yin, be careful. Fong Buyu and Qi Shan are both in the Jiedan realm. I nodded slowly. The Jiedan realm? If I ran into them, I just have to kill them too. Without another word, I blurred into motion, vanishing back into the dense forest. The Chi family, the Fong family, and the City Lord's mansion had conspired to wipe us out. Today, I was going to make sure they were the ones who ended up disappointed. Deep in another part of the woods, a group of Chi family youths were laughing. The Yi family is finished, one of them mocked. Wait, look, it's Yi Yin. He's still alive, another shouted, spotting me. Chi Lin, the leader of the group, sneered. So you're the only one left? Don't kill him yet, boys. I want to see him crawl. I want him on his knees, begging for mercy. He didn't get to finish his sentence. I moved like a ghost, unleashing my soul power in a sudden burst. The Chi disciples gasped, their minds going completely blank as my mental pressure crushed them. Before they could even process what was happening, my blade sang. Heads rolled into the dirt. A soul master. You're a soul master. Chi Lin stammered, his eyes bulging. Then, the light left them forever. That was the last of the Chi family, except for Chi Shan. Now, only the Fong family remained. I had been in this illusion for an hour, but the Cangyun Mountains weren't that large. With my soul perception, I could track them easily. I leaped onto a tree branch, moving through the canopy like a predatory beast. Meanwhile, back at Cangyun Square, a pillar of light flashed. Chi Shan stepped out, the first to finish the trial. Moments later, another flash brought Fong Buyu. The geniuses of the Chi and Fong families truly are something else, the crowd whispered. This battle is just a contest between the two of them. Everyone else is just a backdrop. Suddenly, a third figure appeared. The crowd went silent. It was a boy with a large birthmark on his neck. No one recognized him. He wasn't from the Chi, Fong, Wu, or Zhao families, and he certainly wasn't a Yi. Who was that? People muttered. The boy remained calm, his face showing no emotion. In the stands, Granny Hua smirked. This was her hidden trump card. If the Chi family failed, this boy would sweep the competition. He was even stronger than Chi Shan. Congratulations, clan leader Chi, several local leaders said, bowing toward Chi Dao. It seems there's no suspense left in this year's battle. Even Fong Lin sighed. My Fong Buyu is a talent, but he's only at the first level of the Jiedan realm. He can't compete with Chi Shan's second-level strength. Chi Dao couldn't hide his smug grin. If Chi Shan took the top spot, his name would be carved into the Cangyun Holy Monument, a glory that would last centuries. It might even pave the way for the Chi family to become a major power in the Yin Empire. It's not over yet, Chi Dao said, his voice dripping with false modesty as he looked toward Yi Long and Yi Hu. Perhaps someone from the Yi family will still take the crown? Isn't that right? The crowd chuckled at the blatant mockery. Most people doubted the Yi family would even make it out alive. Yi Long and Yi Hu remained silent, their faces like stone. They believed in me. Just wait another hour, Chi Dao thought, chilling malice in his eyes. When the bodies of your children are hauled out of there, let's see how calm you stay. Back in the forest, I finally found them. I dropped from the trees, landing directly in front of the remaining Fong family disciples. Yin, Fong Bushua gasped, stumbling back. How are you here? Everyone, get ready. The Fong disciples scrambled, drawing their weapons. Fong Bushua immediately activated a protective jade pendant, flooding the area with a powerful aura. He wasn't taking any chances, even against someone he thought was weaker. You decided your fate the moment you tried to hunt my family, I said. I stepped forward, my fist glowing with crackling lightning. Boom. I struck Fong Bushua square in the chest. He flew backward, his internal organs shattering before he even hit the ground. The other disciples panicked, reaching for their teleportation charms. Too late, I growled. I tapped into my soul power, tracing a lightning rune in the air. Thunder roared as bolts of electricity rained down on them. They tried to fight back, but it was useless. A soul master, a Jiedan-level soul master. One of them whimpered before collapsing. Within seconds, the clearing was silent. I exhaled, shaking the tension from my hands. It was a shame Chi Shan and Fong Buyu had already left. I could have ended them right here. I checked the time. The 2-hour limit was almost up. It was time to go. Back at the square, only 15 minutes remained. Over 100 participants had returned, but not a single one was from the Yi family. The time is almost up, the spectators whispered. The Yi family really is gone. Chi Dao's smile was wider than ever. He wasn't worried about his missing disciples. He assumed they were just staying behind to cultivate in the energy-rich environment after finishing off the Yi family. It was a rare opportunity to stabilize their realms, after all. Final 100 breaths, the city mansion official shouted. The crowd turned to look at Yi Long and Yi Hu, shaking their heads in pity. In their eyes, the Yi family was a ghost story. There was no hope left. It looks like we won't need to lift a finger, Lu Qianqian said, shaking her head as she stood up to leave. Yi Yin must have died inside the illusion. It's over. The old man beside her sighed, but then his entire body stiffened. His eyes widened, bulging with disbelief. Miss, look. He's alive. He's still alive. Lu Qianqian froze. She turned her gaze back toward Sungyan Square, her jaw dropping. It wasn't just Yi Yin. Every single member of the Yi family was walking out. They weren't just alive, they looked untouched. Not a single scratch, not a drop of blood on their clothes. The entire spectator stands erupted. The silence was replaced by a wave of pure shock. How is this possible? Chi Dao and Fong Ling both stood up, their eyes nearly popping out of their heads. Granny Huan narrowed her eyes, a cold, murderous glint flashing through them. Even City Lord Song Sheng squinted, unable to believe what he was seeing. They must have hidden the whole time, someone shouted from the crowd. That's it. The Yi family just got incredibly lucky. Standing in the center of the square, I heard the whispers. A cold smile played on my lips. Luck? My Yi family has no need to hide. My voice rang out, echoing across the four corners of the square. The crowd bristled. To them, I was just a waste who would never move past the body refining realm. Who was I to be this arrogant? Even Lu Qianqian looked at me with pure disgust. In her eyes, I was a loudmouth failure. Chi Dao let out a harsh, jagged laugh. Yi Yin, you might have lucked your way through the first round, but my Qi family disciples will humiliate you in the next. You're finished. I tilted my head, my smile widening. Your Qi family disciples? You mean just Qi Shan? The crowd went quiet. What did I mean by that? Before anyone could process my words, an ancient bell tolled. The first round was officially over. A sense of dread washed over Chi Dao and Fong Ling. Just then, officials from the city mansion began carrying bodies out of the formation area. The sight drained the color from everyone's faces. Qi Lin, Qi Hua, Fong Buan, the list went on. They were all dead. Their heads had been cleanly severed from their shoulders. No, Qi Dao screamed, his face turning a sickly white. The losses were staggering. The younger generation of both the Qi and Fong families had been almost entirely wiped out. Qi Dao's eyes snapped toward us. He glared at Yi Ran, Yi Tong, and the others, trying to figure out who did it. He knew Yi Ran and Yi Tong were talented, but even they shouldn't have been able to pull this off. As for me, he didn't even consider it. To him, I was just a cripple with a broken dantian. Killing his geniuses would be an impossible dream for someone like me. While they wallowed in shock, Great Elder Yi Long stepped forward with a grin. Gentlemen, about that bet we made? Everyone saw it. I assume you aren't planning to back out now. Chi Dao's face twisted with rage. He had just lost his son and his nephews, and now Yi Long was demanding he cut off his own arm. Yi Long, Chi Dao growled, his voice laced with killing intent. It seems the Qi and Fong families are nothing but cowards and liars, Yi Long shouted, his voice booming so the whole city could hear. Everyone witnessed their shame. Before the situation could turn into a bloodbath, City Lord Song Sheng spoke up, his voice heavy with authority. He clearly wanted to sweep the bet under the rug to protect the two families. Yi Long went silent, but I could see the look in his eyes. He wouldn't forget this debt. He looked at me, his eyes filled with burning curiosity, wondering how I had pulled this off. But since I was in the center of the square, he couldn't ask. The second round begins now, Song Sheng announced. Those who pass will enter the final battle for the Tsangyan Championship. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The remaining disciples grew tense. With geniuses like Qi Shan and Fong Buyu in the mix, most of them weren't dreaming of the trophy anymore. They just wanted to make it to the finals to be noticed by the big sects watching from the stands. In a VIP section, a group of men in sect robes watched closely. Qi Shan and Fong Buyu are decent prospects, one middle-aged man noted. But compared to last year's Yin Feishua, they're nothing. And the Yi family? They're as good as dead. These were representatives from the Sword Spirit sect. They were a powerhouse in the Wanyan Empire, second only to the Yunchao sect. Song Sheng waved his hand, and a beam of light shot from the Tsangyun Holy Monument. A massive stone platform rose from the ground. The Tsangyun altar. The second round is simple, Song Sheng declared. Stay on the altar for the duration of one incense stick. If you are still standing when it burns out, you qualify for the finals. Over 100 of us stepped onto the platform. Immediately, Qi Shan and Feng Buyu moved toward me, their eyes burning with hatred. Yan, let's see how long that big mouth of yours stays open, Qi Shan hissed. I'm going to make sure every single member of your family crawls off this stage. The Qi family had been decimated. Qi Shan was the only one left. He needed this win to salvage his family's honor. I looked him dead in the eye. You don't have what it takes. Their faces turned purple with rage. Before they could strike, the city mansion official placed a spirit stone into the monument. The monument glowed with a blinding light that crashed down onto the altar. Boom! A massive, crushing pressure descended. It felt like the sky itself was falling on our shoulders. Half the participants were slammed into the stone floor instantly, unable to even lift their heads. The second round begins, the official roared. The pressure intensified. A faint, ghostly image appeared in the air above us, a projection of the ancient Saint Songyun. Even just a shadow of a saint was enough to make the spectators tremble. On the altar, the weaker disciples began coughing up blood. I stood my ground, my legs locked, staring at the enemies who wanted me dead. The pressure was too much for some. Several disciples collapsed, their eyes rolling back as they lost consciousness. Drag them away, the city mansion official commanded coldly. Eliminated, deacons rushed onto the platform and hauled the limp bodies off the stone. Then came the sound of retching. More teenagers vomited blood, unable to withstand the crushing weight. Some couldn't take it anymore and voluntarily stepped off the altar. Eliminated, the official's voice rang out again. In less than 100 breaths, over half the participants were gone. Only 70 of us remained on the stage. I stood firm, my teeth grit. The pressure was intense, making it hard to even move a limb, but I didn't break. I glanced at Qi Shan and Feng Buyu. They looked pathetic. Their faces were deathly pale, their bodies trembling under the weight. However, my eyes shifted to a youth with a black birthmark on his neck. He was pale, but his breathing remained steady. I realized he was likely even stronger than Qi Shan. I was surprised. I didn't know Tsangyun City held such a hidden talent. Boom. The air groaned again. Above us, the phantom of Saint Tsangyun waved its hand. A violent gale swept across the altar. It wasn't just wind. It was a force that physically pushed us. Several more disciples were blown right off the edge like autumn leaves. Damn it, Qi Shan hissed. He was struggling just to stay upright and couldn't spare the energy to attack me. Beside me, Yi Ran, Yi Tong, and the other Yi family youths moved closer. They formed a tight circle around me, shielding me from the brunt of the wind. Up in the spectator stands, Qi Dao and Feng Lin watched with hateful eyes. They wanted me dead, and seeing the Yi family protect me so fiercely only stoked their rage. The Yi family is stupid, someone in the crowd whispered. They're wasting energy to protect a useless cripple who isn't even in the spirit Qi realm. Even if he makes the finals, what can he do? Even the representatives from the Sword Spirit sect shook their heads. To them, the Yi family's devotion to me was pure idiocy. Look, the phantom is moving again. The saint's projection flipped its palm. Suddenly, waves of sharp, sword Qi rippled through the air. More disciples cried out as the invisible blades sliced through their defenses, forcing them to retreat in bloodied heaps. Those who remained surged their spiritual energy to the limit, creating a chorus of metallic clangs as they fought off the pressure. Yan, stay behind us. Yi Tong shouted over the roar of the wind. We'll handle this. You're our trump card, and you must have used a lot of energy back at the Mount Songling illusion. They drew their weapons, their bodies erupting with power as they manifested long swords to parry the descending sword Qi. I didn't tell them the truth. While they fought the visible blades, I was secretly circulating my soul power. I spread it out like an invisible umbrella, quietly neutralizing the worst of the saints' pressure for them. Not even the city lord, Song Sheng, noticed what I was doing. Finally, the incense stick burned out. A heavy bell tolled through the valley. The phantom vanished, and the crushing weight lifted instantly. Dozens of teenagers collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. But their eyes were bright. We made it. We're in the finals. Only 36 of us were left. These were the supposed geniuses of Tsangyun City. But when the crowd looked at the survivors, their joy turned to disgust when they saw me still standing. How is Ian still there? Someone spat. The rest are geniuses, but him? What is the Yi family doing, protecting a waste like that? It's a disgrace to the Tsangyun altar, another added. The Chi family supporters started a chant, fueled by bitterness. Yi Yin is a disgrace. Yi Yin is a disgrace. Lu Qianqian, the girl from the Sword Spirit sect, narrowed her eyes in contempt. A family like this is destined to fall, protecting a burden instead of their future. How foolish. She didn't know that the only reason those Yi family disciples were still standing was because of me. Song Sheng's expression remained cold. He stepped forward, his voice booming across the plaza. The final round begins now. There are no rules. The last person standing on this altar will be the champion of the Tsangyun battle. The atmosphere turned lethal. Every spectator leaned forward. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Dong! The final bell rang. Immediately, Qi Shan and Fang Buyu turned toward us, their killing intent exploding. Yi Ran and Yi Tong stepped forward, their own auras flaring to meet them. Ants in the spirit Qi realm, Fang Buyu mocked. He let out a roar, and his power surged to a level that made the other disciples on stage recoil in fear. Jiedan realm, someone screamed. The gap in power was terrifying. Fang Buyu looked at us like we were already dead. Today, the Yi family ends on this stage. He lunged. His movement was blurred, his speed unnatural. He moved like a predatory beast, his voice carrying the weight of a lion's roar. The spirit lion physique, the crowd gasped. He's unstoppable. He can wipe out the entire Yi family alone. In the stands, Fang Lin smirked at my great elder. Yi Long, watch closely. My son is about to erase your bloodline. But as Fang Buyu charged, I stepped out from behind my cousins. I looked at the genius flying toward us and let out a cold laugh. You think this pathetic level of strength is enough to kill my family? I asked, my voice cutting through the chaos. You're nothing but a jumping clown. The entire plaza went silent. People stared at me like I had grown a second head. How could a body refinement weakling talk to a Jiedan expert like that? Lu Qianqian looked like she wanted to vomit from my arrogance. Fang Buyu's face twisted with rage. Being insulted by a waste was the ultimate humiliation. He reached us in an instant, throwing a punch that carried the force of a falling mountain. Move! Yi Tong yelled. The Yi family youths combined their strength, clashing their blades against his fist. The impact was deafening. Even with their combined power, they were blown back several steps, their faces turning white from the shockwave. Fang Buyu stood his ground, grinning like a demon. Suddenly, a voice spoke up from the VIP seating. One of the elders from the Sword Spirit sect was looking at Fang Buyu with wide eyes. Fang Buyu truly is a genius of the Fang family, the elder called out. Would you be willing to join our Sword Spirit sect? The voice came from the VIP stands, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. It was a middle-aged man I recognized, a deacon from the Sword Spirit sect. Fang Buyu truly is a genius, the deacon called out, his eyes locked on my opponent. Would you be willing to join our Sword Spirit sect? The plaza exploded. Joining the Sword Spirit sect was like ascending to heaven in a single step. It was the most powerful sect in the Wanyan Empire. Every cultivator nearby looked at Fang Buyu with raw envy. Even Fang Lin, who had seen his fair share of storms, took a sharp breath, his face flushed with a joy he could barely suppress. He threw his head back and laughed. If Fang Buyu joined, the entire Fang family would rise to glory. On the stage, Fang Buyu's face glowed with pride. He bowed toward the stands. I am willing. Good, the deacon replied with a thin smile. After this battle, you will return with me to complete the initiation. It was settled. He was practically a disciple already. Fang Buyu turned back to me, his eyes dripping with contempt. Did you hear that, Yin? This is talent. This is true power. I've reached a height of waste like you can never touch. Your family is nothing compared to me. He looked at us like we were ants beneath his boots. I didn't blink. I just looked at him and shook my head. In my eyes, you're still just a clown. You're looking for death. Fong Buyu roared. He lunged again, his fists surging with even more violent energy than before. The crowd sighed. To them, my words were just the pathetic barking of a loser. They expected me to be crushed into paste. Step back, I said quietly. I'll handle this. Yi Tong and the others hesitated, then nodded and retreated. Be careful, Yin. He isn't strong enough to hurt me, I replied. Fong Buyu heard me. His killing intent spiked to a fever pitch. I stood my ground, watching that mountain-level punch fly toward my face. I didn't dodge. I didn't run. I simply clenched my own fist and swung. The VIPs leaned forward. The crowd held its breath. They saw a body refinement kid trying to trade blows with a Jie Dan realm genius. It looked like suicide. Then, the collision happened. A dull, heavy thud echoed across the plaza. The ground beneath our feet groaned. Fong Buyu's body suddenly jerked. He was thrown back, his boots skidding across the stone for 3 full steps before he could stop. I stood there, perfectly still. I hadn't moved an inch. The entire Tsongling Plaza went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Thousands of cultivators stared with wide, bulging eyes. The Fong family, the Qi family, the city governor, everyone was frozen in shock. Good, good, good. Great Elder Yi Long broke the silence, his voice trembling with pure, unadulterated joy. He shouted it 6 times, his eyes wet with tears. As expected of his son, as expected of the Yi family. Ha ha ha. His laughter rang out, mocking everyone who had doubted us. No one in this city could believe it. Only a month ago, my meridians were shattered and my dantian was destroyed. Surviving was supposed to be a miracle. Now, I was going toe-to-toe with a Jiedan expert. Lu Qianqian's face went pale in the stands. She realized now that I wasn't just arrogant. I had the strength to back it up. But she still shook her head. To her, I was just a 9th-level spirit Qi cultivator. The gap between us was still a canyon, and Qi Shan was still waiting in the wings. The crowd began to whisper again. They thought I was foolish for showing my hand so early. If I had stayed hidden, I might have lived to reach the spirit platform. Now, Fong Buyu and Qi Shan would never let me leave this stage alive. I looked at the Sword Spirit Sect Deacon. He didn't offer me a spot. He didn't even look impressed. Instead, he looked at Fong Buyu. Show everything you've learned, he commanded. The gap in realms isn't that easily crossed. It was clear. The sect had already chosen their side. They were backing the Fong family to please the Imperial Marshal. I realized then that there was no mercy to be found here. If I wanted to live, I had to kill every single person standing in my way. I felt a cold smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Fine, I whispered. Let's start the slaughter. Fong Buyu let out a guttural growl. The power of the Jiedan realm erupted from him, forming the faint image of a lion behind his back. He bared his teeth, his physique pushed to the absolute limit. My son's power is enough to flatten you. Fong Lin shouted from above. Fong Buyu blurred. He appeared in front of me in an instant and let out a deafening roar. It was the lion roar, a mid-grade spiritual technique designed to shatter a person's soul and leave them stunned. The sound wave hit me like a physical wall, but my soul was tempered by the heavenly earth sword space. I didn't even flinch. While he was still mid-roar, I lunged forward. My fist flickered with arcs of lightning as I drove it straight toward his chest. Fong Buyu's eyes widened. He hadn't expected me to be immune to his technique. He threw his palm out to block, but the moment we connected, his face turned white. I heard his arm bones groan under the pressure. He tried to retreat, but I didn't give him the chance. I drew my energy and unleashed the flying sword art. It was a saint-grade technique, and as the sword chi radiated from my body, the air itself seemed to scream. Fong Buyu's expression shifted from anger to pure terror. He felt the sheer weight of the technique. He gritted his teeth, forcing his spirit lion barrier to manifest in front of him like a shield. The sword chi slammed into the barrier with a screech of tearing metal. The real fight had just begun. The crowd's eyes went wide as my sword chi shredded Fong Buyu's mist barrier like paper. It didn't stop there. My blade streaked through the air, aiming straight for his throat. Everything happened in a flash. Even Qi Shan and the boy with the black birthmark couldn't react in time. The fight was already over. You dare! A representative from the Sword Spirit sect roared from the stands, his voice filled with fury. I let out a cold laugh. On this Tsangyan platform, Fang Biyu and Qi Shan had planned to slaughter every last member of the Yi family. Did anyone stand up then and ask if they dared? Now that I held the power, this elder wanted to interfere? I didn't hesitate. I didn't even pause. My spiritual energy surged, and I swung the blade down. A spray of blood painted the stone floor. Fang Buyu's head hit the ground, his eyes bulging in absolute shock. He died before he could even process his defeat. The stadium went silent. I heard the collective gasp of 1,000 people. My son, Yi Yuan, you brat, how dare you kill my son? Fang Lin screamed. His aura erupted like a tidal wave. His family's bright future had just been decapitated right in front of him. Fang Lin, life and death are decided by fate on this platform. Those are the rules, my great elder, Yi Long shouted back. He stepped forward, releasing his own level 6 Ling movement realm pressure to keep Fang Lin in check. Do you really want to move against a junior of the Yi family? Fang Lin froze, his face twitching with suppressed rage. The reality was finally sinking in for everyone. They finally understood why the Fang and Qi disciples were dying in the sword grave. They knew why Fang Bian and the others failed the first round. It was all because of me. It was you. Qi Dao hissed, his fists trembling. Granny Hua's eyes turned dark and murderous, and even the city lord, Song Sheng, looked displeased. I stood my ground, staring back at them. For years, the Yi family had done nothing wrong. When enemies attacked Songyan City, my father was the only one who risked his life to defend the gates. He did everything for this city. And yet, just because Yuan Feishua became a saint, just because she wanted to break our engagement, they wanted the Yi family wiped off the map. I wanted them all to know, the Yi family is not a soft persimmon you can just squeeze. I did it. What are you going to do about it? I challenged, my voice ringing across the plaza. Kid, you've got guts, Qi Dao said, his voice cold as ice. But today, we settle the tab. Beside him, Qi Shan's aura exploded. The power of a level 2 Jie Dan realm cultivator rippled outward, shaking the platform. Everyone else, get lost, he roared. The other participants scrambled back, unable to handle the sheer pressure. The gap between the Spirit Qi realm and the Jie Dan realm was like the distance between heaven and earth. People looked at me with pity. I had talent, sure, but I was out of my league. Lu Qianqian shook her head. To her, I was a tragic genius about to be snuffed out. Fang Biyu had only just reached the Jie Dan realm. He was unstable. But Qi Shan, he was a true master of the rank. I won't kill you quickly, Qi Shan growled, walking toward me like a predator. I'm going to make you watch me win the championship. I'll make you watch as I erase your father's name from history. Then, I'll break you piece by piece. He moved like a collapsing mountain, charging straight at me. With just you, I countered. I threw a lightning punch. The collision sounded like a bomb going off. My body shuddered, and I was forced back several steps. Qi Shan didn't budge an inch. The difference in raw power was obvious. Yuan, Yi Long, and Yi Hu shouted, their faces pale with worry. Qi Dao and the others began to smirk. But as I wiped a bead of sweat away, a smile spread across my own face. I was at the peak of the 9th level of Spirit Qi. I was one thin line away from breaking through. This fight, this pressure, was exactly what I needed. My internal energy was boiling, hammering against the gates of the Jie Dan realm. I didn't say a word. I lunged at Qi Shan again, punch for punch, kick for kick. I used the power of wind to push my speed to the absolute limit. My attacks fell like a torrential rain. Qi Shan looked surprised. No Spirit Qi cultivator should be this fast. He shifted his weight, dodging my flurry, and his hand began to glow with a heavy, brown light. Mountain-crushing palm. He swung his hand down with the weight of a boulder. I didn't use my soul power. I didn't use a weapon. I braced my body and took the hit head-on to force my breakthrough. The impact sent me flying back, my feet skidding across the stone. See that? Qi Shan laughed. That is the power of the Jie Dan realm. Something a lowly Spirit Qi ant like you can never understand. Actually, I said, standing up straight as my dantian let out a rhythmic thrum, I understand it perfectly now. Under the pressure of that last palm strike, the barrier finally snapped. The spiritual energy in my dantian condensed instantly, swirling into a solid, golden core. I had reached the Jiedan realm. Inside me, a golden core shimmered. It was larger and purer than any normal core, packed with more energy than even a level 2 cultivator like Qi Shan could dream of. I clenched my fist, feeling the raw, refined power flowing through my veins. I looked at Qi Shan, my eyes cold. The power is indeed strong. Thanks for the help. The stadium fell into a shocked silence. Qi Dao, Feng Lin, and Granny Hua all stood up at once, their faces masks of horror. They could all feel the change in my breath. He broke through? During the fight. A month ago, he was a loser with a broken dantian. How is this possible? Qi Shan, kill him now. Qi Dao screamed, his voice cracking with genuine fear. Qi Shan didn't need to be told twice. He unleashed his full physical potential. A heavy, mountainous pressure radiated from him, the mountain spirit physique. He was close to achieving a saint-grade body. Die! Qi Shan roared. He thrust his hands forward, and his spiritual energy manifested into the shape of a massive peak, crushing down toward me. It was a high-grade spiritual technique, and he wasn't holding anything back. This was Qi Shan's ultimate move, a killing blow meant to end me right there. But I just let out a cold snort. Now that I had entered the Jiedan realm, I didn't even need to use my soul power to sweep the floor with him. I clenched my fist, feeling the raw energy surging, and threw a punch straight at the Phantom Mountain. It was a simple strike, pure spiritual energy meeting a high-grade technique. There was a deafening boom. The massive peak shattered into 1,000 pieces of light. Qi Shan gasped, the backlash hitting him like a physical weight, and he sprayed a mouthful of blood across the stone. Qi Dao stood frozen in the stands. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I had only just stepped into the Jiedan realm. My cultivation shouldn't even have been stable yet. How could a plain, unadorned punch break a high-grade spiritual technique? Run! Get out of there! Qi Dao screamed. He didn't care about the duel or the glory anymore. He just wanted his son to stay alive. Qi Shan didn't hesitate. He scrambled to retreat, his face pale with terror. You think you're leaving? I muttered, my eyes narrowing. The Qi family had come here with murder in their hearts. Qi Shan was talented. If I didn't kill him now, I was just raising a tiger that would return to bite me later. If I had been the weaker one today, he wouldn't have shown me or the Yi family any mercy. I felt a sharp edge of energy slice through my golden core. I moved. My feet blurred, and in an instant, I was standing right in front of Qi Shan. I funneled lightning energy into my fist and swung. The sound was dull and heavy, but the impact didn't hit Qi Shan. A young man had appeared out of nowhere, standing between us. He had a dark birthmark on his neck and eyes that felt like shards of ice. He caught my strike with an effortless coldness. Enough, the boy said, his voice flat. Now that I've stepped in, everything ends here. You and the rest of the Yi family are about to disappear from this world. The crowd erupted. Who was this? He had just blocked my full-strength punch like it was nothing. Third level, Jiedan realm, someone shouted from the stands. Since when does Sanyan City have a genius like that? Granny Hua sat back and smiled. She had planned for this. You, Great Elder Yilong pointed at her, his voice trembling with rage. He isn't from our city, is he? How can he participate in the Sanyan battle? Granny Hua didn't even try to deny it. Who told you he isn't a local? Beside her, the city governor, Song Sheng, gave a thin smile. His name is Yun Yi. He's from the Yun family. He is a citizen of Tsangyun. The name sent a shockwave through the arena. Yun Yi, the cousin of Yun Feishua. The Yun family had moved to the imperial capital years ago, and everyone knew they were a family of monsters. Yun Feishua was already a saint. With the resources a saint could provide, they could manufacture geniuses by the dozen. Now you know who I am, Yun Yi said, looking down his nose at me. If you get on your knees right now and admit the marriage contract between your father and my cousin was a forgery, I might leave your body intact. If not. A forgery? I cut him off, my blood boiling. Your family head came to our door and begged my father for that engagement. Now that you've climbed a little higher, you want to call it a fake? How dare you? Yun Yi roared. The Yi family is nothing but dirt. You think we'd beg you for anything? You clearly won't learn until you're dead. His aura exploded. The pressure of a third-level Jiadan cultivator slammed into me like a tidal wave. I didn't flinch. The Yun family thought they could just bully whoever they wanted? Not today. I unleashed my own power. My breath expanded, matching his intensity, my energy vibrating at a level that rivaled his third-level cultivation. Die! Yun Yi lunged. He manifested his spiritual energy into a massive blade that glowed with a terrifying light. Saint-grade technique. Saint Light Blade. The audience gasped. Aside from the governor's mansion, no one in Songyun City had ever seen a saint-grade weapon or technique in person. The sheer foundation of the Yun family was staggering. Granny Hua watched with total confidence. In her mind, the fight was already over. A boy from a small-town family like mine could never compete with a saint's relative. She knew the truth. She knew the Yun family had begged for that marriage. But now that they were powerful, the Yi family was a stain on their reputation. I had to die, and my father's name had to be erased from the Songyun Saint Monument. You think the Yun family can cover the sky with one hand? I shouted, my voice echoing across the stadium. You think you're the only geniuses in the empire? Let me show you something. Yun Feishu isn't even fit to carry my shoes. I focused every drop of power in my body. My energy condensed into a single, sharp point of sword intent. Saint-grade high-level technique. One sword pierces the heavens. I swung. A beam of sword chi erupted, carrying a force of pure destruction. It collided with his massive blade and, in a heartbeat, shattered his light into nothingness. The sword chi didn't stop. It tore through the air, heading straight for him. The spectators were stunned. I was supposed to be a first-level cultivator, yet my attack was overwhelming a third-level genius. Is that a saint-grade technique? Someone whispered. Where would the Yi family get something like that? I sneered internally. I had purposely masked the true depth of the technique, but Yun Yi felt it. He knew. His eyes widened as he realized he was facing a power that shouldn't exist in this city. You. He started to scream, trying to call out the grade of my skill. I didn't give him the chance. I moved while the sword chi was still clearing the air. One sword pierces the heavens. I struck again. In a real fight, mercy is just a slow way to commit suicide. You hit them while they're down. You finish it. Yun Yi panicked. He reached into his storage bag and pulled out a spiritual saber, the metal gleaming with a dangerous light. No, Yenner, get back, Yilong shouted from the sidelines. Using a spiritual weapon in the Songyun battle was a blatant violation of the rules. Despicable, Yi Bao roared, glaring at Granny Hua. She just sat there, a cold smirk on her face. She didn't care about the rules. As long as I died, the Yun family would win, my father's legacy would be wiped clean, and the Yi family would be history. I knew exactly what Granny Hua was thinking. She planned to blame everything on Yun Yi. She'd have him kicked out of the family to save their reputation, and in this empire, nobody would dare say a word. If it weren't for Yun Feishue's upcoming battle for the sect leader position, the Yi family would have been wiped out long ago. To her, the fact that we were still breathing was a gift of luck. But today, our luck was supposed to run out. Standing on the Songyun platform, I watched the spiritual energy swirl around Yun Ye's saber. The Yun family was truly despicable, breaking the rules without a second thought, but my heart remained calm. Spiritual weapon or not, Yun Yi was a dead man. I moved. My silhouette blurred as I accelerated, pushing my speed to the limit. What is he doing? Someone in the crowd gasped. He's charging straight into a spiritual weapon. It's suicide. Yun Yi let out a cold laugh. With the spiritual saber in his hand, his confidence flooded back. He believed this blade could cut through anything. Die, he roared. But the moment he poured his power into the blade, his eyes went vacant. I felt the ripple of my own power strike. I had released a concentrated burst of soul force directly into his mind. His soul shuddered, and his spiritual energy flow stalled. The saber stayed raised in the air, frozen for a fraction of a second. That was all I needed. One sword pierces the heavens. It happened in the blink of an eye. My sword, chi, tore through the air and plunged deep into Yun Ye's chest before he could even bring his weapon down. The spectators were paralyzed with shock. To them, it looked like Yun Yi had simply hesitated, giving me the perfect opening. Only Yun Yi knew the truth. As he felt his life fading, he realized what had happened. Soul Force. I wasn't just a martial artist. I was a soul master. And not just any soul master. I was at the Jedan realm. To reach that level in a single month, the realization terrified him. He wanted to scream, to warn the Yun family that they were dealing with a monster, but the blood filling his throat choked the words back. My sword chi had already shredded his internal organs. Even the woman inside the heavenly earth sword was stunned. Your control is terrifying, she whispered in my mind. Even a high-level soul master would usually leak enough energy for a powerful expert like Song Sheng to notice. But I had kept it so contained, so precise, that no one felt a thing. Yunya's body hit the floor with a dull thud. Blood pooled around him. The silence was deafening. Granny Hua looked like she had seen a ghost, her face frozen in disbelief. But I wasn't finished. Before anyone could process the kill, I blurred again, appearing right in front of Qi Shan. Kit, if you dare touch my son. Qi Dao roared from the stands, his eyes narrowing in fury. I didn't let him finish. I didn't hesitate for a single second. My sword swung in a clean, horizontal arc. Qi Shan's head rolled off his shoulders before he even realized he was in danger. The boy who had looked down on me for years died, without ever knowing how far behind he'd fallen. He's so ruthless, an old man near Lu Qianqian whispered. I could feel their gaze on me. Their entire perception of the trash of the Yi family had just been shattered. I stood in the center of the platform, surrounded by the bodies of my enemies. I wiped the blood from my blade and scanned the remaining participants, the youths from the Wu and Zhao families. Do any of you still want to fight? I asked, my voice echoing across the square. They looked at Yunya's corpse and then at me. Without a word, they turned and scrambled off the platform. They wanted no part of this. Yi Yan, you did it. Yi Ran, Yi Tong, and the other Yi family disciples cheered. For the first time in history, the Yi family had swept the top 10 spots of the Tsungyun battle. It was a glory even the Yun family had never achieved. My cousins eventually stepped down, leaving me standing alone under the spotlight. I was the champion. My elders, Yi Long and Yi Hu, were shaking with joy. We had saved the family. On the other side, the faces of Qi Dao and Fong Ling were black with rage. They had lost their sons and their future. Even the city governor, Song Sheng, looked deeply displeased, but he had no choice but to follow tradition. The winner of the Tsungyun battle is Yi Yin, Song Sheng announced. He shall carve his name upon the Tsungyun holy monument. As the Yi family erupted in celebration, I saw the city manager, Song Song, collapse to the ground. He had bet everything against me at 100-to-1 odds. He was ruined. I walked toward the massive stone monument. My father's name, Yi Shaodian, was etched there. Father, I whispered, I didn't embarrass you today. Then, my eyes drifted to another name, Yun Feishue. I remembered how she and her sister looked down on me. They said saints are like the heavens and mortals are like dogs. They said we lived in different worlds. Yun Feishue had even claimed that having her name next to my father's was a disgrace to her. A disgrace? I muttered. You're right. My father shouldn't have to share a monument with someone like you. I raised my hand, channeling my energy to strike her name from the stone. Yi Yan, what do you think you're doing? Granny Hua screamed, lunging forward. I am the champion. I barked back. The Yun family lost. Are you saying you can't handle the consequences? Are you sir losers? She froze, her face twitching with suppressed rage. The rules were absolute. But as my hand neared the stone, a golden glow erupted from Yun Feishue's name. It was a protective ward of sword chi she had left behind when she carved it. That's her lingering intent, the crowd murmured. It's too strong. He won't be able to erase it. Granny Hua's lips curled into a smug smile. She thought her precious genius was still untouchable. Break for me, I warned. I didn't care about her intent or her protection. Today, I'm wiping you out. No amount of energy could stop me. With a single breath, my aura exploded. I channeled every ounce of strength into a crushing blow, slamming my power against her lingering sword chi. A deafening crack echoed through the square. Yun Feishue's protection shattered into nothingness. Under the stunned gaze of the entire crowd, I reached out and violently struck her name from the monument. In its place, I carved 2 words, Yin. The moment the final stroke was finished, a jade pendant floated out from the Tsangyun Holy Cup. This was the Tsangyun medallion. Anyone who left their name on the monument received one. It was essentially a death exemption pass. If I encountered mortal danger within the city limits, the Holy Cup would sense the medallion and release a burst of power to protect me. The crowd erupted in whispers of envy. 2 names from the Yi family now graced that stone. It was a level of glory the people of Tsangyun City hadn't seen in generations. The elders sighed in awe, but Granny Hua looked like she wanted to bite through her own teeth. She turned a desperate gaze toward Song Sheng, the city lord. He nodded slowly and stepped forward, his voice booming across the square. The rules of the Tsangyun battle are absolute, he announced. 15 days from now, we will hold the Tsangyun Grand Ceremony at the moon-watching platform. The champion must accept challenges from any youth in the city. A roar of confusion swept through the spectators. The grand ceremony wasn't new, but for hundreds of years, it had always been held at the central square. Why move it to the moon-watching platform? And while the challenge rule existed on paper, no one ever used it. Who would be stupid enough to challenge a proven champion? Song Sheng looked directly at me, his eyes cold. Yin, you and the Yi family must not be absent. He turned to leave, his entourage following close behind. But one young man stayed back. He stood there, radiating a chilling intent that made the air feel heavy. Yin, he said, his voice like ice. In half a month, I'll be waiting for you. The crowd gasped. I heard the name, Song Yang, whispered in hushed, terrified tones. He was the city lord's nephew and the prized disciple of the great soul master, Xin Chun. At 19, Song Yang was a legend. He wasn't just a 5th-level Jiedan realm cultivator with a saint-grade physique. He was a soul master. In this world, that title meant he was a darling of the heavens, possessing mental powers that could crush ordinary warriors before they even drew a blade. I let out a cold laugh. So, the city lord's mansion was finally making their move. Fine, I replied, meeting his gaze. I'll be waiting for you too. A soul master? I wasn't afraid. People like Qi Shan and the others weren't worth revealing my own soul power, but this guy might actually be a challenge. Half a month. Moon-watching platform, Song Yang said, then turned and walked away. I watched his back, my blood beginning to boil with excitement. Inside my storage ring, the mysterious woman in the heavenly earth space felt my intent. She knew I was like my father, Yi Xiaodian. The stronger the opponent, the harder I fought. To me, nothing was unbeatable. A 5th-level Jiedan realm soul master? I had 15 days to make sure I buried him. The crowd, however, already saw me as a dead man. They whispered that I was arrogant and young, that I had no idea how terrifying a soul master truly was. To them, the gap between us was a mountain I couldn't climb. I ignored them. Elders, let's go, I said to Yilong. And don't forget to collect our winnings from the gambling dens. I doubt the city lord's people would want to be known as Welshers. Yilong and the others burst out laughing. Behind us, old Kai looked like he was about to vomit blood from his losses. As we reached the edge of the square, Qi Dao's voice rose in a crazed howl. Yin, one day, I will see the Yi family wiped from existence. I stopped in my tracks and looked back at him. Within 1 month, the Qi family will be destroyed. The Fong family too. You should remember those words, because I'm the one who said them. I didn't wait for his reaction. I led my family away, leaving behind a stunned silence that quickly turned into mocking laughter. They thought I was delusional. Qi Dao and Fong Lin were both 6th-level Dong Ling realm experts. To them, my threat was just the ramblings of a lucky kid. Back at the Yi Villa, I didn't waste time. I pulled out the Saint-grade weapons I had retrieved, the flying sword and the soaring strike. Saint-grade weapons, Yilong whispered, his hands trembling as he touched the steel. With these and the coins Yenner won, our family's foundation is stronger than ever. They all thought these treasures were left behind by my father in a secret compartment of his sword. I let them believe it. It was easier than explaining the truth. Yenner, what's your plan now? Yilong asked. I'm heading into the Tsangyun Mountains to train, I said. It's too dangerous, Yilong countered immediately. I'll go with you. I shook my head and pulled out the Tsangyun medallion. I need to go alone. As long as I stay within the city's territory, This jade will keep me safe. It was a lie to put them at ease. I planned to go deep into the mountains, far beyond the city's borders where the medallion was useless. I needed to be between life and death to break through my limits. If I stayed in the safe zones, I'd never be ready for Songyang. Yi Long and Yi Hu eventually nodded, their faces full of worry. I slipped out into the night, heading toward the dark silhouette of the peaks. Watching me leave, Yi Long sighed. Yena has grown up. Yeah, Yi Hu replied softly. Is it time we told him about that secret? Yi Long's expression hardened. He shook his head. Not yet. The Yi family isn't stable. The danger hasn't passed. Great Elder Yi Long didn't want to pile more pressure on me, but I didn't have time to worry about his feelings. The moment I left the Yi villa, I sprinted straight for the Tsungyan Mountains. The path took me past the moon-watching platform. Under the shroud of night, the platform was eerily silent. Not a soul was in sight. I slowed my pace and stepped onto the stone surface, my mind racing. I couldn't help but wonder why Tsang Sheng was so insistent on holding the Tsangyun Grand Ceremony here. As soon as my foot touched the platform, I felt a strange vibration. My expression darkened. I pulled out the Tsangyun medallion and noticed its glow was fading. I understood then. The cold realization hit me like ice. The medallion protected me within the city limits, making it impossible for others to strike me down without consequence. But here, at the moon-watching platform, its power was at its weakest. It was a loophole. Even with the medallion in my hand, Song Yang could kill me here and face no repercussions. The city lord's mansion had planned this perfectly. You want to kill me? I muttered into the dark. Fine, but it's going to cost you everything. I didn't linger. I moved past the platform, and, half an hour later, I crossed the threshold into the Tsungyun Mountains. I didn't stop at the outskirts where the weak beasts roamed. I pushed deep into the interior. By the time the sun began to rise, I was miles into the wilderness. I kept my soul power extended like a radar, trying to avoid unnecessary trouble, but I still had to fight my way through several waves of beasts. I wasn't even in the deepest part yet, and the air was already thick with danger. I didn't turn back. If anything, the danger made me more determined. The city archives mentioned a massive beast riot hundreds of years ago. The experts of Tsungyun City had marched into these depths to suppress it. A battlefield like that was bound to have lost treasures and leftover spiritual energy. I needed that edge. I checked my bearings, recalling stories my father had told me. The ancient experts had headed west. I adjusted my course and kept moving. 3 days passed. I was covered in cuts and bruises, my clothes torn, but my eyes lit up when I saw the ground ahead. Rotting scraps of ancient fabric and rusted metal were scattered among the roots. These weren't rags. They were the remains of battle armor. The old battlefield was close. I pushed through the dense, ancient forest. A thick, toxic miasma began to swirl around me, cutting visibility down to less than 3 meters. For a normal cultivator, this was a death trap. But with my soul power, I could sense everything within 50 meters. As a soul master, I had a natural advantage here. 15 minutes later, I stumbled into a clearing of broken hills and scattered debris. White fragments poked out of the dirt, bones crushed by the teeth of massive beasts. Spirit platform realm, I whispered, looking at a shard of bone. Only the remains of masters at that level could resist rotting for hundreds of years. The battle here must have been a bloodbath. If even spirit platform experts couldn't make it out, the danger ahead was real. Suddenly, I froze. I heard the faint rustle of movement in the trees. It wasn't the heavy gait of a beast. It was the light, rhythmic step of humans. We were far beyond the borders of Tsungyun City. Was it people from Feng City? The mountains sat between the two, and hunters from both sides often braved the depths to make a living. So this is the ancient battlefield, a voice whispered from the fog. Yeah, another replied. They say a saint-grade beast appeared back then. It almost wiped out the city. Luckily, the Tsungyun saint arrived just in time to kill it. But the price was heavy. So many died that their bodies couldn't even be identified. I listened from the shadows. The Tsungyun saint's legacy was respected for a reason. We aren't here for treasure. A middle-aged man's voice cut in, low and urgent. We need the blood spirit grass. It's the only thing that can save Father. Remember, don't alert the beasts. Schwer, we're counting on you. I focused my soul power. I saw a group of people, and on the leader's chest was a familiar emblem, the Fengsha hunting sect. My heart skipped a beat. I knew them. My father, Yi Xiaodian, had traveled these mountains years ago. He had saved the life of the Southtown king, Lu Zhen, and the members of this very hunting sect. When Sungyun City was besieged by enemies in the past, the Fengsha sect had risked everything to cross the mountains to help us. The battle was over by the time they arrived, but the Yi family never forgot that gesture of loyalty. Was the old sect master still suffering from his old wounds? My father had mentioned that the old man had been injured in his youth, and the pain only got worse with age. Blood spirit grass. I searched my memory. With the ancient alchemy techniques in my mind, I was a walking encyclopedia of medicine. I immediately thought of 13 different formulas to treat blood stagnation. The blood spirit pill, the blood clearing recovery pill, and then I found it. The blood source pill. It was a lost recipe, incredibly potent. One pill could probably restore the old man to his peak. I found it, a young girl's voice cried out. That must be Schwer. Pick it quickly, the leader, Feng Wuyan, urged. Then we leave. They had barely plucked 2 stalks when a bone-chilling roar ripped through the trees. A spirit beast. Damn it, Feng Wuyan hissed. His aura flared. He was in the moving spirit realm. The 12 hunters behind him drew their weapons, all of them in the Jiedan realm. But the girl, Schwer, was only at the spirit chi level. She was a liability in a fight like this. A pack of beasts emerged from the fog, led by a snarling spirit beast. I'll hold the lead beast. Feng Wuyan shouted. The rest of you protect Schwer. Fight your way out. They didn't hesitate. They circled the girl, their faces grim but determined. But the beasts were smart. They sensed the girl was the weakest link and lunged straight for her. Feng Wuyan was forced back by the lead beast, unable to break away. The hunters fought desperately, but the sheer number of beasts was overwhelming. They were being surrounded. I watched from the brush, my hand tightening on my sword. I couldn't just stand by and watch my father's old allies get torn apart. A massive beast, equivalent to a 3rd-level Jiedan realm cultivator, tore through the defensive circle. It lunged straight for Schwer. Her face went pale, drained of all color. The hunters cried out in panic, but they were pinned down, trapped by the swarming pack. Feng Wuyan let out a heavy sigh of despair. Schwer closed her eyes, accepting the inevitable. But I wasn't done yet, as a flash of steel cut through the fog. Just as the beast opened its jaws to crush her, my long sword whistled through the air. It buried itself deep into the creature's skull. The impact was instant, and the beast collapsed, dead before it hit the ground. Everyone froze, and even the surrounding spirit beasts stopped their snarling, confused by the sudden intervention. I dropped from the treetops like a shadow, landing lightly on the forest floor. I reached down, gripped the hilt of the heavenly earth sword, and ripped it free from the carcass. "A boy," someone from the Windbell Hunter house gasped. "Thank you, little brother." Feng Wuyan shouted, his voice strained. "But there are too many of them. Run." I didn't waste time talking. "Follow me," I commanded. I focused my mind. My soul power surged, boiling over as I channeled it into my fingertips. I traced a pattern in the air, forming a thunder talisman. With a flick of my wrist, I sent it screaming into the front of the pack. The explosion was deafening. Lightning arched through the trees, throwing beasts into the air and clearing a path through the carnage. A soul master? The hunters were stunned. They didn't linger, though. They scrambled to their feet and followed me as I led the charge. The beasts weren't giving up. They howled, chasing us through the thick undergrowth. I kept my focus sharp, throwing out fire and thunder talismans in rapid succession. The bursts of elemental energy slowed them down, but the lead spirit beast was relentless. It ignored the fire, eyes locked on us. Feng Wuyan stayed back, clashing with the monster to keep it from tearing into our rear. I needed more control. I reached into my soul core and pulled out a beast-taming talisman. I didn't target one, I targeted 5. The runes settled over 5 of the nearest snarling beasts. Their eyes went glassy, their movements stuttering as a psychic link formed between us. "Kill," I barked. The 5 beasts turned instantly, fangs baring as they tore into their own pack. The hunters looked like they'd seen a ghost. In the entire Wanyan Empire, beast tamers were legends from old books. Yet here I was, controlling a mini-army. Deep in my mind, the woman in the sword was silent for a moment before speaking. 5. Even ancient masters could only control 3 at your age. You're a monster, Yin. The distraction gave us enough time to reach the center of the ancient battlefield. The air here was heavy, thick with killing intent and toxic miasma. The hunters had taken pills for the fog, so they were safe for now. I scanned the area. I could feel fragments of spiritual energy, but most were decaying, useless to me. Then I saw it. Near a pile of old bones, a faint pulse of saintly chi flickered. It was weak, hidden from everyone but a soul master. A saintly fragment. I moved. Using the flying sword technique, I slammed a burst of sword intent into the ground, blasting a hole in the dirt. I grabbed the glowing fragment and tossed it into my storage ring in one fluid motion. It wasn't much, but it was enough to push my cultivation further. A roar shattered my concentration. Feng Wuyin had been driven back into the clearing, his body covered in blood. He looked at us with a desperate, suicidal light in his eyes. Go, get out of here, he roared. His aura flared to its limit. He was going to blow himself up to take the spirit beast with him. Uncle, Schwer screamed. I took a deep breath. I remembered seeing Feng Wuyin in Sanyan City before. He was a good man. I couldn't let him die like this. There's a rune here, the woman in the sword whispered, left behind by the Saint Sanyun during his battle with the Saint Beast. If you can understand it, you can trigger its power. I looked toward a shattered, ancient tree. There it was. A faint, glowing mark etched into the wood. A saint talisman. My heart hammered. Understanding a saint-grade rune was supposed to take months, even for geniuses. But I didn't have months. I had seconds. I hope this guy can hold on, I muttered. Behind me, the spirit beast let out a blast of energy that sent Feng Wuyin flying. He crashed into the dirt, coughing up blood. He was finished. Little brother, run, he gasped, looking at me. He seemed confused that I was just staring at a dead tree while death closed in. Yin, move, the woman in the sword hissed. It's too late. The beasts were closing in. Some were at the 8th and 9th level of the Jiedan realm. One hit would turn me into a red mist. The woman in the sword sighed, preparing to exert her own power at a great cost to save me. But then, my eyes snapped shut. I saw the lines. The rune wasn't just a drawing. It was a flow of intent. Complex, yes, but every stroke had a purpose. I felt the rhythm. My soul core vibrated as I mirrored the pattern with my own energy. In an instant, I opened my eyes. I traced the final stroke in the air. The ancient tree glowed. The saint talisman flared to life, resonating with my soul. The woman in the sword was speechless. I was just a Jiedan-level soul master, but my comprehension was beyond logic. In the blink of an eye, the power of a saint was mine to command. The world seemed to slow down as the saint talisman flared. To Feng Wuyin and Ning Schwer, we were already dead. They looked at me with a mix of pity and regret. They didn't even know my name, yet here I was, dying alongside them because of a choice I made. But then, the light hit. A blinding, holy radiance erupted from the ancient tree, shaking the entire forest. The spirit beasts, even the powerful ones at the peak of the Jiedan realm, began to tremble. In an instant, the energy swept through the clearing like a tidal wave. The beasts didn't just die, they evaporated. They were erased from existence, turned into nothing but red mist and fading echoes. I stood there, breathless. This was just a single rune left behind by the Tsangyan saint 800 years ago. If a mere remnant of his power was this magnificent, I couldn't even imagine how strong the man himself must have been. Little brother, was that you? Feng Wuyin stammered. He and Ning Schwer looked at me like I was a god descending from the heavens. We need to move, I said, snapping them out of their shock. The other beasts will be here soon. Let's go. We didn't stop running for half a day. Only when the dense tree line of the Tsangling Mountains finally thinned out did we allow ourselves to breathe. We had made it out alive. My father might actually be saved, Feng Wuyin whispered, clutching the herbs we had gathered. He turned to me, his eyes full of gratitude. Little brother, we owe you our lives. I won't forget this. But I realized, I still don't know your name. You don't seem like you're from Feng City. I looked at him and smiled. Uncle Feng, it's me. I'm Yi Yan. The entire group froze. Feng Wuyan's jaw dropped. He stepped closer, scanning my face intensely. Yi Yan? Little Yan. It is you. You look exactly like your father. I didn't recognize you. You were so small the last time I saw you. You've grown so much. His voice cracked with emotion. Your father, Yi Xiaodian, saved my son and me in these very mountains years ago. We were close friends. And now, his son has saved us again. My Feng family owes the Yi family far too much. His expression darkened with grief. It's just a tragedy that Xiaodian is gone. I remembered my father mentioning Feng Wuyan often. Their bond was real. Come with us, Feng Wuyan said, his voice regaining its strength. My father will be overjoyed to see you. I nodded. I needed to visit the Spirit Pavilion in Feng City anyway. I needed high-quality spiritual energy items to fuel my cultivation, and every major city had a branch of the Spirit Pavilion. They were mysterious, powerful, and stayed out of local politics. The perfect place to find what I needed. When we arrived at the headquarters of the Fengling Beast Hunters, the atmosphere was tense. A group of armed men stood in the courtyard, looking like they were ready for a massacre. What is the meaning of this? Why are you bringing weapons into our home? A man shouted. That was Feng Wuyan, the deputy leader and Feng Wuyan's brother. What does it look like? A middle-aged man sneered. Our Zhao family beast hunter leader said there can only be one hunting group in Feng City. He gave you 10 days to pack up. Today is day 9. Haven't you figured it out yet? The crowd of onlookers outside the gates whispered in hushed tones. The Zhao family had been aggressively swallowing up every other hunting group in the city. The Fengling group was the last one standing, but they were weak. Their leader, the elder Fengling, was a powerful spirit platform realm master, but he was old, injured, and his energy was failing. Word was he couldn't even stand up anymore. We will never submit to the Zhao family, Feng Wuyan growled. The Zhao messenger, Zhao Xiao, laughed. Hard words for a man waiting for a corpse. You're waiting for Feng Wuyan to bring back blood spirit grass, aren't you? Even if he survives the mountains, which he won't, who will refine the pill for you? Alchemist Hua Jian has already promised us he won't help you. The Fengling members turned pale. Hua Jian was the only alchemist in Feng City. Without him, the herbs were just useless weeds. That's impossible, Feng Wuyan stammered. My father helped Hua Jian years ago. He owes us. Nothing is impossible in this world, a new voice rang out. A man stepped forward with an arrogant gait. It was Hua Jian. Seeing him there, standing with the Zhao family, crushed the last bit of hope in Feng Wuyan's eyes. Decide now, Zhao Xiao mocked. Surrender or die. Our decision is that we will never crawl for you. The crowd parted as Feng Wuyan marched into the courtyard, Ning Shuer and I following close behind. The onlookers gasped. They couldn't believe he had returned from the Tsangling Mountains alive. Zhao Xiao's eyes widened. Then he spotted the herbs. So, you found the blood spirit grass. So what? You don't have an alchemist. You think you can find one in another city in time? That old man Feng Ling won't last until tomorrow. Feng Wuyan glared at Hua Jian. You told them, didn't you? You told them how weak my father is. Hua Jian didn't even look ashamed. I did. So what? The Fengling hunters erupted in curses, calling him a traitorous snake. It was because of Hua Jian's information that the Zhao family felt bold enough to strike now. They wanted to kill the old leader before he had a chance to recover. You ungrateful piece of trash, Feng Wuyan spat. Get out. Get out of my house. Hua Jian's face twisted in anger. Watch your tone, Feng Wuyan. If your father were at full strength, I might show you some respect. But I am an alchemist. In this city, no one speaks to me like that. I couldn't listen to his ego anymore. I stepped forward, my voice cold and flat. He's just a mediocre alchemist, I said. What's the big deal? If Uncle Feng told you to get lost, then get lost. The courtyard went silent. Everyone stared at me like I had just slapped a god. In this world, alchemists were revered, their status almost untouchable. Hua Jian's eyes flared with murderous intent. You little brat. He didn't hesitate. He released a surge of soul power, aiming it straight at my mind to crush my spirit. It was a decent attack for a normal person, but to a soul master like me, it was pathetic. I felt the soul power in my core stir, ready to retaliate with my 1,000-thread needle technique. Before I could strike, Feng Wuyan stepped in front of me, releasing his own spiritual energy to block the blow. The two forces collided with a dull thud. I cut through the soul power instantly, severing his connection to the attack. "What's the matter, Huajian?" I asked, my voice echoing in the sudden quiet. "Are you planning to start a fight here, inside the Fengling Hunter Guild?" Feng Wuyan stepped closer to me, his brow furrowed with worry. He knew Huajian was famous in Feng City, and he was clearly concerned that I was exhausted from the journey. He didn't want me taking on a high-level alchemist alone. Huajian's expression darkened, but Zhao Xiao just chuckled. "Don't be in such a hurry, Master Hua," Zhao Xiao said, his eyes glinting with malice. "Tomorrow is the final day anyway. When that time comes—" He didn't finish the sentence, but a thick wave of killing intent filled the air. Huajian smirked. "Fine. Tomorrow, the Fengling Hunter Guild will vanish from existence. And as for you, kid, tomorrow I'll show you exactly how powerful an alchemist can be." With that, they turned and walked out. The crowd that had gathered began to disperse, whispering among themselves. They looked at me like I was a dead man walking. To them, I was just some reckless brat who had signed his own death warrant. "Big brother, who is he?" Feng Wuyin asked, looking at me with curiosity. "This is Yi Yin," Feng Wuyin replied, pride swelling in his voice. "He's Yi Xiaoyan's son." Feng Wuyin's eyes went wide. "Yi Xiaoyan's son? Haha, I should have known. Only his son would have the guts to speak like that. You've crushed that old man's pride, kid." He laughed, but his face soon turned serious again. "But with Huajian gone, who is going to refine the pills? Come, let's go see father." We headed to the back courtyard. Inside a dim room, I saw an old man lying on a bed. This was Feng Ling. He looked terrible, frail, withered, and devoid of the strength a leader should have. "Father," Feng Wuyan whispered, his voice trembling with grief. "I'm just an old bag of bones. I've lived long enough." Feng Wuyan sighed, then leaned in. "Father, I ran into trouble in the mountains. It was Xiaoyan's son who saved me." Feng Ling's eyes flickered with a spark of life. He sat up slightly, staring at me. "Xiaoyan's son? Yin." He looked me up and down, nodding slowly. "You look just like him. It's a shame your father passed so soon, or I'd get up right now and drink 3 rounds with him." I looked at Feng Ling. One glance told me everything I needed to know. His blood circulation was blocked, and the stagnant energy was suffocating his life force. At this rate, he wouldn't survive until tomorrow. "It's a pity," Feng Ling sighed. "I'm at the end of my road. I only regret not seeing through the Zhao family's scheme sooner. Tomorrow, my guild will be no more." The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. "The Fengling Hunter Guild will survive," I said firmly. "And your injuries will be healed." Feng Ling smiled kindly, but I could tell he didn't believe me. He knew his body better than anyone. "Uncle Feng," I turned to Feng Wuyan. "Does the guild have a medicinal cauldron?" Everyone froze. "Yinner," Feng Wuyan stammered. "Are you talking about refining a blood spirit pill?" "A blood spirit pill only treats the symptoms, not the root," I said. "That's a low-level pill for a mediocre alchemist like Huajian. If I'm going to refine something, it'll be a blood source pill. One pill will clear the blockage and restore his strength completely." Feng Wuyin gasped. He had traveled to the imperial capital and read ancient texts. He knew the blood spirit pill could only buy a year or 2 of life. Only the legendary blood source pill could truly heal a spirit platform realm master. But that recipe was lost to time. "Yinner, we'll get everything ready," Feng Wuyan said, choosing to trust me blindly. "Tell us what you need." I grabbed a pen and paper and scribbled down a list of herbs. The blood spirit grass was the only rare ingredient. The rest were common. Feng Wuyan took the list and rushed out to gather them personally. "I need a private room," I told Feng Wuyan. "I cannot be disturbed for 3 hours." Once they left, I was alone with the old man. "Little guy," Feng Ling said softly. "You don't have to lie to them. I know my condition." "Old man," I said, looking him in the eye. "With me here, you will recover. I promise." I entered the secret room they prepared. As I sat down, the voice of the woman in the sword echoed in my mind. "He was in the spirit platform realm," she warned. "You are only a soul master at the Jiedan level. Even with ancient techniques, Your cultivation is too low to refine a pill that can help him. You need to be at least at the Dongling realm. Maybe, I muttered, but I have a plan. I pulled out the Saint-grade artifact fragment I had been saving. Even if you consume that, it won't be enough, she continued. You've never even refined a single pill before. The Yi family doesn't even own a cauldron. I didn't answer. Outside the room, Feng Wuyin was pacing. Brother, how strong is Yi Yin really? He asked. As a soul master, he's comparable to a third-level Jiedan practitioner, Feng Wuyin replied. Feng Wuyin turned pale. That's it. Hua Jian is comparable to a sixth-level practitioner, and even he could only promise a year of life. How can Yi Yin restore father completely? They both went silent, the weight of doubt pressing down on them. Inside the room, I ignored the world. I activated the heavenly earth art and swallowed the Saint-grade fragment. Boom. The power exploded inside me. It felt like my internal organs were being shredded. Even though it was just a fragment from hundreds of years ago, the energy was violent and wild. I coughed up a mouthful of blood, my body trembling on the verge of collapse. Refine, I roared internally. I pushed the heavenly earth art to its limit, forcing the chaotic energy toward my dantian. My veins felt like they were on fire, but I refused to break. Crack. The barrier inside me shattered. Second-level Jiedan. But I wasn't done. My soul power surged, fueled by the ancient essence. It climbed higher and higher, crossing the threshold of the fourth level and slamming into the fifth. I opened my eyes, wiping the blood from my chin. My physical cultivation was now at the second level of the Jiedan realm, but my soul power was equivalent to a fifth-level practitioner. This should be enough, I whispered. It was time to start the real work. The breakthrough didn't just boost my power, it washed away my injuries. I felt brand new. I pushed the door open and stepped out into the courtyard. Feng Wuyin and Feng Wuyin were there, their faces tight with anxiety. Even Ning Xuer had stayed. She didn't have much combat strength, but she had a gift for alchemy and could identify rare herbs better than anyone. They had spent the last few hours scouring the depths of the Tsangling Mountains for the ingredients I needed. Every eye turned to me the moment I appeared. Is everything ready? I asked. It's all here, Feng Wuyin replied, gesturing to the piles of spirit herbs. I didn't waste time. I released my soul power, letting it drift over the materials like an invisible tide. I checked them against the ancient recipe in my mind. Not a single leaf was missing. As my power brushed past them, I saw Feng Wuyin and Ning Xuer freeze. Their eyes went wide. The last time they felt my soul power, it was barely at the third level of the Jiedan realm. Now, it felt like a mountain pressing down on them, a fifth-level surge. In just a few hours, I had transformed. I ignored their shock. According to the ancient records, a true alchemist had to turn their own qi into flame. I couldn't afford a single mistake. This was my first time actually refining a pill. I took a deep breath. I channeled my qi, and a spark ignited in the palm of my hand. I tossed the flame into the tripod, and the furnace roared to life. With my soul power acting like an invisible hand, I lifted the first herb and dropped it into the fire. I watched it melt. My movements were slow, deliberate, yet fluid. I kept the temperature steady, stripping away the impurities until only a drop of glowing essence remained. I flicked it into a jade vial and reached for the next one. I've seen Hua Jian refine pills before, Feng Wuyin whispered to his brother, his voice trembling. It was nothing like this. Yi Yin makes it look like an art. Feng Wuyin nodded. Compared to me, a master like Hua Jian was a clumsy amateur. If that old man knew I was outperforming his decades of experience on my first try, he'd probably cough up blood from shame. Then came the final herb, the blood spirit grass. Beads of sweat formed on my brow. This was the heart of the pill. Every herb has a different melting point, but the blood spirit grass required a heat so intense my current qi could barely reach it. If the temperature wasn't perfect, the whole batch would turn to ash. Inside my mind, the woman in the sword sighed. You're smart, kid, but your fire isn't hot enough. I didn't panic. I reached deep into my core and pulled on a different thread of power. Would qi rise? I shouted internally. Green energy flooded the furnace. In the world of elements, wood feeds fire. The flames turned from a steady orange to a violent, searing white. The tripod hummed and vibrated under the pressure. The blood spirit grass finally surrendered, melting into a thick, crimson liquid. Impressive, the woman whispered. But the hardest part isn't the extraction. It's the condensation. She was right. To force these essences into a blood source pill, I needed the strength of someone in the Dongling realm. As a second-level Jiedan practitioner, I was technically too weak. I pulled the last essence into a vial and sat down. I didn't start the final step yet. Instead, I activated the Heavenly Earth art. My body became a black hole for energy. Spirals of spiritual chi rushed into me, forming visible whirlpools in the air. In minutes, my exhaustion vanished. I stood back up, my eyes glowing. Feng Wuyan and the others were speechless. Most cultivators needed half a day to recover their energy. I had done it in the time it took to blink. What color is his dantian? Feng Wuyan stammered. It has to be at least green grade, maybe higher. I didn't answer. I poured all the essences back into the furnace at once. Merge. I warred. I poured every ounce of my soul and chi into the tripod. Hours ticked by. The sun began to peek over the horizon, turning the sky a pale gray. The pill was slowly taking shape, but the energy required was staggering. I was pushing myself to the absolute limit. Suddenly, a massive boom shook the ground. The front gates of the estate splintered into pieces. The Zhao family is here. A voice screamed from the distance. Feng family, get on your knees and welcome your masters. The courtyard turned cold. The enemy had arrived sooner than we expected. We'll hold them off, Feng Wuyin said, his face hardening. He drew his blade and signaled his men to follow him toward the front gate. Feng Wuyin looked at me, then at the men who had returned from the mountains with him. Protect Yi Yan at all costs. If the gate falls, take him through the back. He's our only hope. He's the son of Yi Shaodian. We owe him everything. Yes, sir, they shouted. Feng Wuyan turned and sprinted toward the sound of the fighting. At the entrance, the Zhao family's hunting gate had already marched inside. Leading them was Zhao Yao, a man whose presence felt like a suffocating weight. Behind him were Zhao Xiao and the alchemist Hua Jian, all of them wearing smug, murderous grins. The time is up, Feng Wuyin, Zhao Yao shouted, his voice echoing through the halls. Hand over the deeds to this place and die quietly. In your dreams. Feng Wuyan yelled as he arrived. Ah, the brothers are both here, Zhao Yao laughed. It's a bit much to ask for your father to join us, isn't it? Since he's probably a cold corpse by now. The Zhao family disciples erupted in laughter. Outside the walls, the townspeople gathered, whispering in pity. The Feng family had been a pillar of the city for years, but today, everyone believed they were watching an empire fall. Kill them all, Zhao Yao commanded, his eyes turning cold. I want to see Feng Ling's body before the sun is fully up. The Zhao family charged. For the Feng family, our guards screamed, clashing with the invaders in a spray of steel and blood. But Zhao Yao didn't even move. He was a 9th-level Dongling practitioner. To him, the men dying in front of him were nothing more than ants. He looked past the fighting, his eyes locking onto the direction of the courtyard where I was still struggling to finish the pill. He could smell the medicinal fragrance in the air. And he wasn't going to let me finish. Zhao Yao stepped forward, his presence shaking the very air around him. He didn't hesitate. He marched straight toward the inner courtyard, and the alchemist Hua Jian followed close behind him like a loyal dog. Outside the gates, the cultivators who had gathered to watch sighed and shook their heads. The Zhao family's hunting gate was simply too powerful now. With Zhao Yao reaching such a terrifying level of cultivation, who in the Feng family could possibly stand in his way? To them, the end was already written. Inside the courtyard, my heart tightened. I looked at the chaos and realized we were running out of time. Quick, I shouted. Bring the old master here now. The Feng family guards didn't waste a second. They rushed to Feng Ling's private quarters and carried him out on a chair. My breath hitched when I saw him. He was pale, his breathing ragged and thin. The blood circulation in his body had completely stalled. This wasn't the heroic leader people talked about. He looked like a guttering candle about to go out. It was a tragic sight, a hero facing his final sunset. Just one more step, I whispered to myself. I had only managed to condense about 1/10 of the pill. With my current strength, finishing it was proving nearly impossible. I poured every ounce of my internal power into the cauldron, forcing the medicinal essences to draw closer together. The timing was almost right, but then a massive explosion rocked the courtyard. The heavy doors shattered into splinters. Zhao Yao and Zhao Xiao stepped through the dust, grinding like wolves. "So, this is where you're hiding," Zhao Yao sneered, looking at the withered man in the chair. "You've got one breath left, old man. Good. I want you to watch with your own eyes as I trample the Feng family into the dirt." He looked satisfied. Everything was going exactly as Hua Jian had predicted. But then, Hua Jian's eyes shifted toward me. He froze. "An alchemist?" Hua Jian gasped. Zhao Yao and Zhao Xiao both jerked their heads toward me, shock written all over their faces. Alchemists were rare and dangerous to offend. When they realized how young I was, the shock turned into genuine fear. A pill master this young shouldn't exist in a place like Feng City. A Jie Dan-level alchemist? At his age, Zhao Xiao's eyes trembled. This was the kind of talent that only appeared once in 1,000 years. His spiritual energy is only at the second level of the Jie Dan realm, Hua Jian noted, regaining his composure. "Everyone, we are already enemies with the Feng family. Don't hesitate. As for this brat, I'll handle him myself." Zhao Yao and Zhao Xiao nodded, their auras exploding as they lunged toward the dying Feng Ling. "Stop!" Feng Wuyan screamed. He was covered in blood and swaying on his feet, but he threw himself in front of the attackers anyway. My protectors moved to block Hua Jian, shielding me while I worked. "You're all seeking death," Zhao Xiao laughed. "To them, we were just ants." I ignored them. I ignored the screaming and the clashing of steel. My entire world was reduced to the pill inside that cauldron. I let out a low roar and unleashed a hidden surge of energy. I pulled a fragment of saint-grade energy from deep within my soul and hurled it into the furnace. "Drop," I commanded. The saint energy ignited. A thunderous boom echoed from the cauldron as the final spark of power forced the medicinal essences to fuse. Suddenly, a rich, heavenly fragrance flooded the courtyard. The pill was complete. I let out a long, shaky breath and a smile touched my lips. Using that method to force a fusion, "This kid is getting interesting," the woman inside my inner space murmured. She knew my own strength wasn't enough, but I had used the saint fragment as a hammer to finish the job. It was a high-level technique that required terrifying precision. One mistake and the whole place would have blown up. I didn't wait. I slapped the side of the cauldron, and a blood-red pill flew into my hand. It glowed with the light of 9 distinct stars. In the world of alchemy, stars represent purity. 1 star is trash. 9 stars is perfection. I didn't care about the star count. I cared about the man dying in the chair. I blurred across the courtyard, appearing instantly at Feng Ling's side. Zhao Xiao and Zhao Yao paused, looking confused. "So what if you finished it?" Hua Jian yelled, his voice trembling with jealousy. "At your level, it's just a low-grade pill. It might buy him a few minutes of life, but he'll never have the strength to fight again. Is that what you think?" I looked at Hua Jian and sneered. "Low-grade pills are for trash alchemists like you. Look closer. This is a blood source pill. It's a high-grade spirit pill." Hua Jian turned pale. "What? Impossible. What even is a blood source pill? You call yourself an alchemist, and you don't even know what this is." I laughed. "You should kill yourself out of shame. You couldn't have made a high-grade pill." Hua Jian hissed. "Not with your power. Just because you're a failure doesn't mean everyone else is." I snapped, cutting him off. "Is making a high-grade pill supposed to be hard?" I did it with one hand. Everyone, including Feng Wuyan, stood frozen, gulping in disbelief. Even the woman in my head muttered that I was being a bit of a show-off. I didn't give them more time to process it. I popped the pill into Feng Ling's mouth. It melted instantly. The pure, potent medicinal power surged through his veins, clearing the blockages around his heart like a tidal wave. Color returned to his face. His eyes, once dull and glazed, suddenly snapped open with a terrifying light. "Move!" Zhao Xiao screamed, finally realizing the danger. He unleashed his full power and lunged. He was too late. Feng Ling stood up. The air around him exploded with the power of the spirit platform realm. He didn't even use a weapon. He just thrust his palm forward, slamming a seal of energy into Zhao Xiao's chest. There was a sickening thud, Zhao Xiao was sent flying like a broken doll, soaring over the courtyard walls and crashing into the street outside. He hit the ground and didn't move again. He was dead before he even landed. The crowds outside gasped. They had expected a Feng family body to come flying out, not the young master of the Zhao family. Then, one after another, more bodies came flying over the wall. The Zhao family's elite guards were being tossed out like garbage, stone-cold dead. Inside the courtyard, Zhao Yao and Hua Jian were shaking. Impossible. No pill works that fast. Hua Jian stammered, staring at me. I looked back at him like he was a piece of filth under my shoe. In that single moment, his pride as an alchemist was utterly crushed. Hua Jian. Feng Ling's voice boomed, thick with killing intent. I helped you when you were young. And yet, you joined the Zhao family to destroy mine. For that, you die. Feng Ling moved like a blur. A wave of energy crushed the life out of Hua Jian before he could even beg. Outside the gates, the townspeople huddled in fear. That voice, it was Feng Ling. The dying man had returned. And from the sounds of the screams coming from inside, the Zhao family's massacre had just turned into their funeral. Zhao Yao collapsed to the ground, his legs turning to jelly. He started begging, his voice cracking with desperation. He called out to Feng Ling, promising he would never stand against the Feng Ling hunting sect again if only he were allowed to live. Feng Ling just sneered. He had founded his sect from nothing, spending years in the Cangyun Mountains facing death every single day. A man like that doesn't hesitate when it's time to kill. He didn't waste his breath on a reply. He simply pointed a finger, and a sharp blade of spiritual energy sliced through the air. A sickening sound echoed through the courtyard. Zhao Yao's body was torn open before he could even scream. Feng Ling looked at the corpse with pure disgust. He told his men to throw the body out, saying he didn't want that filth staining his doorway. The Feng family disciples moved quickly, tossing what was left of Zhao Yao into the street like common trash. It was over. The Zhao family hunting sect had been completely wiped out. The crowd outside was stunned. Nobody expected this outcome. They knew there were no other alchemists in the city capable of saving Feng Ling, and the local shops definitely didn't carry rare medicines like blood spirit pills. People started whispering, convinced that Feng Ling must have found some ancient treasure or a hidden miracle within the old battlefields of the Cangyun Mountains. As they looked at the Feng family now, the mockery was gone. It was replaced by a deep, cold fear. In this world, only true strength earns respect. Feng Ling turned his gaze toward me. The gratitude in his eyes was overwhelming. He told me that everything was thanks to me. He said his entire sect owed me and the Yi family a debt that could never truly be repaid. He stood there, tall and proud once more, and made a solemn promise to me right then and there.